The girl fell into the man's arms, straight from the sky. She couldn't believe it, and the stranger asked her if she really had fallen from the sky. The main character managed to end up in the hands of the villain. The girl immediately apologized and asked the gentleman to let her go. Well, he refused because she doesn't even know how difficult it was to find his bride. She might try to run away, so he won't let her go. She was surprised because she realized that she was the bride. The main character didn't understand at all what was going on here. She was riding on a bus, then she felt pain and doesn't remember anything else. She doesn't understand at all where this huge desert came from in front of her. The lady apologized and asked who he was and where she was now. The man was shocked that God didn't tell her anything even about her fiancé, so he asked to listen to him carefully. This man is the Master of the West, Edward Crawford. And also he is her future husband. When the girl heard his name, she was very worried. Edward Crawford, the crazy villain from the novel called Give Me Salvation. The main character read it, and it had many names: the Crazy Western Dragon, the Crazy Killer, the Lord of the Desert, and so on. Well, at first it was just that he would kill anyone who irritated him. This man was obsessed with white hair, so he kidnapped everyone, men and women. He had to torture them to death. Usually only older people, and the main character Lillian had white hair. A side effect of the disease, which was the lightening of hair, was also kidnapped by Edward. He tormented her. She almost immediately fell in love. And it all ended with her death in the arms of the prince, the main character. She did not understand at all who could fall in love with a person they were torturing. Perhaps he liked men and the suffering of the main character, or he wanted to drink her blood, and how she ended up in the hands of this madman was the biggest mystery. Suddenly, a man approached him and addressed the gentleman. He asked what to do with the others. Edward asked Beryl to sort it out. The lady did not understand what he had to deal with. She saw that there were many people connected there. Edward remarked that his bride seemed to have a very soft heart. Well, there was nothing to be done about it. He took her on his shoulder and asked the servant for a sword. The girl asked him to let her go. She really wanted to go to Earth. And when she lowered her head, she noticed that she had white hair and was horrified. When she turned back, she saw many dead people. Edward noticed that she also had a weak stomach. And all because she threw up, the lady thought that he was crazy. They've sorted that out, so it's time to go home. The girl did not understand at all where she had sinned so much that she was sent here. Even getting into a novel shocks her. Edward came up behind her and pointed where to look. But she also has white hair. It seems that her sins in the past were unforgivable. The Duchy of Crawford, they arrived there, and the butler congratulated the gentleman on his return. The main character remembered that this man is the one Edward trusts, Seth Million. In the novel, only he greeted and saw off Edward, and this is only allowed to trusted individuals. When Edward is in a bad mood, he might kill someone, so they agreed on this in advance. The butler asked the gentleman who this lady was, and he said with a smile that she was the bride. Edward told him that his bride had a very soft heart and a weak stomach, so he asked Seth to be more gentle with her. The lady apologized to the gentleman. She begged him to let her go, but the Duke said that she had no idea how hard it was to find her, so it was impossible. Edward can't lose her. The girl promised she wouldn't run away, and he said she was shaking all over. The main character said that this was not true, so the gentleman decided to check and touched her nose. Edward said he was so scary to me, but she was scared of him. It was just very sudden. The Duke said that she shouldn't call him sir because he was her fiancé, and therefore she should call him Ed, after which the gentleman decided to ask what his bride's name was. The girl did not understand at all what she was doing because there was no one nearby who could tell her anything about this body, and she also has no memories. The girl doesn't know who she is at all. And also, I wouldn't like to say my real name. Edward didn't understand at all why she didn't answer. It was written all over his face. The girl tried to say her name but still said that she didn't know. The girl doesn't know who she is and why she fell into Ed's arms. The man was surprised that she said she didn't know, so he noted that God had sent him a test. Precious eyes and white hair. This woman is definitely his bride. But for some reason, she doesn't even remember her name. In principle, it will be even more fun because he will be able to fill her thoughts with himself alone. The lady wanted the Lord to save her. Edward asked her if he was telling the truth because her memory could gradually return. She really wanted something to be done about this psycho. After that, the man suggested that she come up with a name. The main character learned that she had no choice, so she didn't object in any way. He decided to name her Angelina, and then she asked what her name was. This girl is a gift from God and his angel. She was very confused. He asked Angelina how she liked this name. Of course she liked it, but life was more important, so she said yes. Now she is Angelina Crawford. This name and surname really suit her. Once something falls into Edward's clutches, he will never let it go. The only way to escape his clutches is to become a corpse no longer useful. Endless torture, unbearable pain and suffering. All that remains is to pray for a quick death. Therefore, the main character believed that the same thing would happen to her. Edward did not understand what his fiancée was thinking so hard about. She said nothing, and if you think about it in the novel, he never called the kidnapped blonde girls brides. But for some reason she is an exception, so she turned to the guy and said she had a question. Edward doesn't like questions, but she can ask one Angelina didn't understand at all why he considered her his bride. The Duke said it was because he had received an oracle. His life will be very short unless he marries a girl who falls from heaven. In the Empire of Assyria, the nobles and the ruling family receive a prophecy from the Holy Church, but the novel only spoke about the prince's oracle. Naturally, the story of Edward's oracle, or how he searches for his bride, was not mentioned. Edward puzzled over it for a long time when he received it. It looked like he was trying to play a joke on him. It was as if he told him to die quickly, so all the priestesses who gave this oracle were killed. Because the gentleman decided to joke back, Angelina was very scared, but then she fell from the sky, as they said. Now the girl realized that she was the bride from the prophecy and was Edward's betrothed. As if that weren't enough, she also turned out to be the jewels he had been looking for so long. Angelina asked him to stop, and asked again if she really was a jeweler. Only she can have such light hair and eyes that look like precious stones that shimmer in the light. It's so beautiful. The girl couldn't believe that it was really a jewel. The novel didn't spend much time describing them, so she decided to pretend she didn't know and asked what it meant. Edward said that they were a special type of fairy race, a race that inherited the blood of real fairies and lived in the desert of the Crawford dukedom. There was an oracle that called them the bringers of destruction to the empire, so the emperor began a policy of extermination. I don't even know that their deaths bring a curse. In the prequel, it was mentioned that because of this, monsters began to appear. If the genocide was approved by the emperor himself, then she would be killed immediately when discovered. His secret army of crows, Angelina, was immediately recognized, so she wonders if they still hunt people like her. Edward had no idea what had surprised his soft-hearted bride so much. The girl said that if she is one of the few people will want to catch or kill her. Edward, yes, there is no one who would dare touch what belongs to him. Angelina realized that she had made a mistake and said that she was talking about that. Edward told her not to worry, just to stay close to him. With these words, he scares her even more, but still she agreed. The guy noted that his bride had so many fears and he would not be able to let her go in such a situation. With this, the gentleman asked the butler to bring the dagger and the engagement certificate. Angelina was very surprised when she heard about the certificate. Edward noted that he frankly would have preferred a marriage vow. Well, he won't rush things so as not to shock her even more. Angelina understands almost nothing and has no idea why she fell from the sky and lost all her memories, so she is scared. And they only met today. Edward apologized because he was so happy that he didn't think about her situation at all. It seems to have worked. The Duke pointed out that it should have been said earlier, so no need to worry. Edward will be with her every second. That's the problem. It feels like he'll never let her go. Seth asked the gentleman if he was really going to do this. His fiancée was very worried. That's why he thinks he needs to prove that he won't leave her. That's not what Angelina meant at all. After which the gentleman said that the butler could go, and he himself suggested that she get down to business. Edward said that she shouldn't worry, because it was just for him. He also said that she could close her eyes if she couldn't stand it. He could have said it earlier, it hurt her even to look. Now she can open her eyes and her mouth at the same time. The girl did not want this and really wanted someone to save her. She had to drink his blood. He just smeared his blood on the chocolate. She still decided to ask why she needed Ed's blood. It was so that they could be together since she had eaten sweets, so everything should be fine. She had completely forgotten that he had forced Lillian to do this when he confessed his love to her. It's also hard to understand. Edward noted that she seemed fine and that this was what was expected of his bride. And Angelina was surprised that there could be any problems. Well, now it was her turn. The girl was very scared because he said that the dagger was for her. Edward said that there was no need to run away because he would do everything tenderly with his bride. The Duke asked her not to be afraid but just to be near him, because he would take care of her safety and happiness, and she thought he was angry. Apparently, Angelina was wrong. It was very painful to make a cut on her finger. But he just gave her an injection. He drank her blood and the girl became embarrassed and asked him to stop. They used a shining dagger to exchange each other's blood. It didn't seem like he was doing it because he was crazy, so she decided to ask him why he did it. The Duke did not understand what she meant by the word "it." The exchange of blood is the conclusion of a blood contract. Angelina was very scared, and even the name scared her, but still she decided to ask why this contract was needed. There is a magic spell on the dagger, and their bodies will become one. Not even the body, but the soul, and he will be able to understand where she is and can feel if she is in danger. Although he killed everyone who knew about the oracle, it was better to be on the safe side. Angelina realized that she was finished. Edward felt he had to protect his bride. She was falling deeper into his clutches, and now he offered her to sign a contract. The girl did not understand at all what to do. Maybe she could just run away and say she can't, but she'd be caught quickly. She doesn't even know the local language, so she doesn't quite understand how to sign it. She decided to read it. Angelina is not sure whether this is a curse or a blessing. But she signed, and the Duke noted that now everyone would know that she was his fiancée. Now it's time to sort out the rest. He showed the room where she would live. It was immediately clear that he planned to follow her because it was the next room. The Duke didn't think their meeting would be so sudden, so he wasn't very well prepared, so he asks for forgiveness. Angelina said that everything he needed was here, so he didn't have to worry. Edward asked her to speak up if she needed anything because he wanted to take care of her. Angelina understood him, and then there was a knock on their door, and the gentleman was informed that the servants were ready for the lady. The woman was glad to meet him and introduced herself as the head maid named Sarah. The mistress can inform her if she needs anything. She was also provided with a maid, Johnny, who will do everything possible to make her comfortable. Angelina asked Edward to let her go, but the man did not understand why. The lady said that she just wanted to greet them, but he said that it should be greeted from his hands. No one would dare to judge her even if she did it lying down, and then he asked the servants if he was speaking correctly. Angelina agreed and noted that she was glad to see them and asked them to take care of her. Edward remarked that it looked like his fiancée needed etiquette lessons. The girl was very scared because she thought she had said something wrong. A duchess shouldn't treat her servants like that. Well, Angelina thought she wasn't a duchess yet. Well, she's his fiancée and they're engaged but not married. Edward was surprised that she was so upset that they didn't get married right away. He continued to discuss everything with her because everything is easy to change. But Angelina told him that this is not the issue. She is not even a noblewoman. Edward asked if anyone dared to belittle his bride. The maids hung their heads. Angelina said that nothing like that happened. He was always next to her. Nothing like that happened. In that case, she should not bother herself with such thoughts. And remember that she is now the bride of the Master of the West himself, Edward Crawford, and she must never forget it. Angelina thought that the only thing that didn't scare her was his smiling tool, but now it's somehow empty. So she agreed and lay in her room very frightened. Even though he said they would be together all the time, it's not true. He left and said he would invite her to dinner, and she felt a terrible sense of relief. The maid asked the lady if she needed a bath. She immediately jumped up and said yes. Jenny asked the lady to wait a minute, and she was very grateful but not at all used to this. Angelina didn't understand at all what she should do now. So much had happened that she couldn't even digest it. First, she decided to check her face, and when she looked in the mirror, she was very surprised. She's definitely a jewel. Edward was obsessed with white hair, and it seems it was because he was looking for Jewel. But the lady does not understand at all why he needs them, and how he even planned to find her. Angelina didn't understand at all how she could know if this wasn't in the novel. The Emperor destroyed people like her, and the Duke said that she was Ira's bride mines from all sides, and she doesn't even know what to do to survive. Since he went so far as to make a blood contract with her, it means that he wants to protect her life. But that doesn't mean everything will be so simple, and you can't guess at what moment he'll do something crazy again. There is no way to escape now her movements can be tracked, or even the Emperor will find her. There are only two options. It will be impossible to come to any agreement with the emperor, but Edward is different. It's all because she's the bride from the prophecy, and she doesn't know why he needed the jewels. Well, it's better to stay with him that way. She'll definitely live longer. Even villains with a dark side can be tamed. It's a cliché of such novels, but all the villains are different. Edward is a man who is compared to a dragon, a cold-blooded killer. So Angelina isn't sure if she has any chance at all, so she'll just keep quiet. Her goal is to live a long and peaceful life. Her opinions and tastes are of no use when survival is at stake. Angelina thought that if she didn't cause problems, she would live longer. Jenny noticed that the lady seemed very tired, so she offered to give her a massage. The lady was very pleased, but she was not sure that she could enjoy it like that. Angelina is very well. The maid asked what they would do with the ring. The girl didn't quite understand what she was talking about, and then she saw that a ring appeared on her hand. She didn't understand where it came from, and perhaps it belonged to the owner of the body. There is something written inside it, but she doesn't know the letters, so she asked the maid to read it. But the maid apologized because she did not understand what was written. The decoration itself looks ominous, and the inscription is also illegible. Angelina thinks that something bad happened to the previous owner of this body. She didn't understand at all why this woman was falling from the sky. The maid had to leave already and told the mistress to call her if she needed anything. She just appeared in the middle of the clouds and started flying down. It's completely unclear what the point of this is. Angelina doesn't know at all, but she decided to go to bed because she doesn't understand anything, because she has too little information. For now, she'll have to focus on survival. After that, the girl fell asleep. And when she woke up in the morning, the Duke was next to her. He didn't think that his daughter-in-law was such a sleepyhead. The girl squealed in surprise. The Duke thought she was so happy to see him. Angelina did not understand at all why he was here. The gentleman said that her husband simply came to the bride's bedroom. So he doesn't see anything special here, but they're not married yet, and she couldn't believe that he would come every morning. Edward said that everything would be exactly like this, because he said that he would always be there. Now it's clear that he wasn't joking, but seeing him right after she opens her eyes is somehow strange. Edward asked her if she didn't like something, but she said that it wasn't that, it was just that her hair was a mess, her face wasn't even washed, and she also has bad breath. After these words, the gentleman laughed and remarked that she was so cute. The girl thought he wanted her dead. Edward noticed that it was time for his bride to get up, so he picked her up and suggested that they go have breakfast. She fell fast asleep yesterday, not even realizing how upset he was that they didn't have dinner together. Edward asked her what she would like. The lady said that she does not eat that much. She doesn't need to eat all of it because it can choose what she likes. The cook tried his best, but he doesn't know if she'll like it. Even sitting at the same table with a villain makes her nervous to death, let alone eat. Angelina was grateful for the food. After the meal, the gentleman was very surprised that she had eaten very little. The lady remarked that it was probably because she had just woken up. He had been staring at her all the time. That's why she doesn't understand at all how one can eat calmly in such a situation. The gentleman called the butler and asked him to tell the cook that she liked the seafood mushroom soup sweets and sour sauces. Now she realized that he hadn't eaten because he was looking at her plate. "This is simply amazing." Seth asked the gentleman if he had finished yet, and he confirmed it. Angelina turned to him and noticed that he had not eaten at all. This reaction surprised the master and the butler. Because of this, Angelina began to think that she had said something wrong. The gentleman smiled because she was worried about him. It's so interesting, Angelina said that she just didn't want to be the only one who ate. More money needs to be donated to the temple. They sent her a bride with such a beautiful heart. It's time for her to change her clothes. Edward told her not to worry because he usually had light breakfasts. The maid said that she would show the lady the dressing room. He said he wanted to eat with her, but in the end, he didn't even take a crumb in his mouth. The order was urgent yesterday, and the maid bought these things in a hurry. So something might not suit the lady, but they will fix it a little later. Angelina was shocked that they prepared all this in one day. She thought there would be 3 or 4 things. Here, the bloodthirsty man is surprisingly attentive. Jenny noted that she was lucky. It seemed she would only have to adjust the sleeves a little. They've sorted out their clothes. Now they need to tidy up their hair and do their makeup. Angelina sat and thought about what awaited her in the future. She died and then was reborn in the novel, and it was hard to believe it. But she has no time to be sad or deny what is happening because she has fallen into the hands of a crazy killer. It feels like there's a knife at my throat. First, you need to increase your chances of survival, and to do this, you need to reduce dangerous situations. The imperial family can't be allowed to kill Edward, but the problem is that in the novel it was the crown prince who killed him. Despite his exceptional body and amazing strength, the reason Edward ultimately died was because of the Sword of Sapphiro. A blade made from dragon scales, it can cut anything in this world, and is also filled with divine power, which allows it to neutralize an opponent at the will of its owner. Angelina understood that she needed to find this sword before the crown prince, and if she failed, then not only Edward would die, but she too. These clothes cannot compare with the beauty of his bride, and also, the gentleman noted that it was necessary to buy a new one, although it still would not be worthy of Angelina. The lady was surprised and said that she had enough clothes. Edward understood that she was selfless, but it was better to just give in because he wanted to give her a gift. He sat her down on the sofa and she noticed a box in front of her. Angelina didn't quite understand what it was. The gentleman asked if it reminded her of anything. Now she will know who she is. Jules inherited the blood of fairies and their power is in the gems. That's why she has the ability to use them. Angelina was surprised and asked again because she didn't understand anything about it. Talent release of hidden power. After which Angelina asked what power was stored in them. And the girl couldn't believe that she could shoot fire. Edward doesn't know all the details. Well, most people healed with their help. Angelina was upset and did not understand what she had hoped for. After which the lady decided to find out how she could do this. The Duke thought that she should know about it. Angelina did not understand at all why he pretended to understand if he could not explain it to her. Edward said she had very cute pouty lips and a displeased look. She must think for herself and this will be her homework. The gentleman promised that he would grant her wish when she learned. The girl was very happy when she heard that he would grant any wish, but the gentleman added that it was impossible to break the engagement or leave him. She won't be able to escape easily. The master couldn't believe that she was disappointed, but she was just thinking about what wish to make. Angelina understood that she would have to master this skill, and then she would have a guarantee that this man would not kill her. Angelina asked Edward why they came to the desert. She didn't want to think about him bringing her here because she couldn't awaken her abilities. It's all because this is the Jewel House. He wanted to see if the memories would come back if they came here. Angelina would like this too, but the reason is not the loss of memory, but the substitution of souls. Well, at least he won't bury her here. The land where the jewels lived is called Ambria. Angelina did not understand at all how he knew so much about them, so the gentleman said that it was all because they had lived on their territory for generations. When I was a child, my father told me a lot of things. Now Angelina knows about it. This was not described in the novel, but it is believed that the death of the first Duke of Crawford is connected with the imperial family. The emperor, who considered Crawford a nuisance, unleashed a demon rampage after the destruction of the javelin, resulting in the death of the previous duke. Now Angelina is tormented by doubts in her head because she cannot believe that he died so easily. Edward told Angelina that this place is Ambria. Angelina asked if her ancestors really lived here because there is nothing here. Everything looked different before. It seems like she forgot because they can use the magic of jewels. The lady noted that it seemed he was talking about treatment. Most could treat, but father mentioned that in Ambria there were beautiful forests and lakes. The girl couldn't believe that it was possible. It meant that the previous duke had been to this place. Edward said that the head of the family should visit him at least once and other people came here too. Today his fiancé asks a lot of questions. Angelina said that this could bring back her memories, and then she could learn to use the jewels. Is it literal or is she doing it for the reward? Angelina turned away and pretended to find it funny. Ambria is protected by a barrier and you can't get in here without permission. For outsiders, this place doesn't exist. Now she understands why he brought her personally. Angelina saw the guardian tree of the javelina, and it is thanks to it that the barrier is maintained. They know this woman, and she is from a race they were protecting, and she had to fight for her life. They must remember her. Something happened. Angelina did not understand why she could not remove her hand, and she also felt a terrible pain, after which she began to fall. Edward didn't raise what happened to her and caught her in his arms. The Duke noticed something strange and shouted at her to take her hands away. He did not understand at all how this tree dared to hurt her. Rumors said that they were attacked. The master knew that it was crows. He asked them to wait a little because the gentleman would be back soon. Angelina was in great pain, as if her heart was about to explode. The girl noticed that someone started to come very close to her. These are crows, but she does not want to die. She wants to live. Failure again? So the crows asked the master for forgiveness. The crown prince asked if anyone was left alive, but Kasan remained silent. The crown prince said that it was he who chose him as the leader of the ravens, and therefore asks him not to disappoint him. The man promised to find her. The emperor had no idea where she was hiding. His father will grumble again. He can't understand why he is so desperate to convince him that this race needs to be gotten rid of. After all, it won't give the full result while Crawford is alive. He needs to be removed. He kills his raven time after time. You don't understand at all how this man hasn't died. Yet the race is destroyed. But for some reason, the man who should have died along with his father is alive. He also inherited it through his family's ability. The emperor does not have full power as long as the Crawfords exist. This empire is a country where power is in the hands of the strong, with the exception of the area around the capital where the imperial family resides. East Duke Peyton, West Duke Crawford, South Duke Chavigny North, where the head of each region is Archduke Hyson. Among them, the Duke of Crawford has the strongest army which protects the western border. Even stronger than the emperor's, and that's without taking into account the duke's personal strength. If these people are loyal to the imperial family, then there will be no reliable protection, and there will be nothing to worry about. They have always been the most stubborn of the four families, and perhaps it is better to live quietly and not interfere with each other. Well, that won't work because his reign must be perfect. Angelina woke up and the duke was sitting next to her again. She was scared again. The gentleman noted that it was very good that she came to her senses faster than his patience snapped. Angelina didn't understand at all what had happened and why he was on her bed. Edward was shocked that she again didn't remember anything. Apparently yesterday she was in too much pain. Angelina was surprised when she thought about yesterday. And then she remembered the events. Edward hugged her and said that everything was fine now. After that, Angelina cried because she really thought she was going to die, but she is alive. This tree guardian was dead. The gentleman confirmed this and added that this had happened a long time ago. But it seemed to her that the tree was alive because it did not let her go. And that searing pain reminded me of the sound of a heartbeat. It seems that his bride is special. Even dead trees become greedy. Edward promised to find out the details so she cannot worry. There is one problem left, and Angelina decided to ask who these people were who wanted to kill her. The Duke told her not to be surprised, but to listen to him. The Crows are people with red eyes from a secret imperial organization. It arose during the beginning of the persecution of the Jewels 15 years ago and operated under the command of the Crown Prince. All information related to them about the Kutana is a secret, but one thing is certain. They continue to search for traces of this race. Angelina realized that they knew about her existence. They definitely knew about it, but for some reason, it seems to her that they will inevitably find her. That's why she's very scared, and she doesn't even know what will happen if she gets caught. So he didn't want to tell her anything, but there was nothing to be afraid of because they could never harm her. Again, she doesn't want to accept it so much so that it's annoying. Even when she couldn't move her hand, when she was in unbearable pain, even when the raven sword was pointed in her direction. Edward was the only thing on her mind. She would have to spend all her time with the madman to survive. The Duke remarked that she seemed to have taken on too many problems. There is no safe place for her. She needs to unlock the power of the gems as quickly as possible. Well, there was no progress. The maid noticed that the mistress had been sighing a lot lately. It wouldn't be like that. So she turned to the lady. Angelina answered her kindly and asked what was the matter. She noticed that today was a very nice day, so she suggested that she take a walk in the garden. Angelina noted that the garden is very beautiful. It is the time of marigold blooming, so the view is excellent. The maid said that she would prepare a drink for the lady, and also asked if she had a favorite tea or dessert. Angelina asked for scones. Everything will be there, you just need to wait a little, but suddenly the mistress asked the maid to stop. Angelina asked if she could pick some flowers while she was gone. The maid suggested that she ask the gardener, and he very quickly provided her with a lot of flowers. Angelina did not need so many. The maid was surprised at how many flowers there were because she had only asked for a few. Angelina didn't understand what to do. The maid said that she would take some and put it in a vase, and from the rest she could make a bouquet or wine. She would sort out the flowers while the lady could eat. Angelina began her meal with pleasure. Suddenly, the Duke came up to her and was very happy because he had been looking for her for a long time. She was very scared the gentleman was only asking what made his bride so happy, because she doesn't look like that next to him, and he's very upset. Angelina said that she was walking in the garden, saw beautiful flowers, and now she is drinking tea. Edward didn't understand what it was about that tea that made her happy. The girl said it was because she had been eating scones. The Duke was in Russia and did not understand who dared to give this disgrace to his bride. Angelina added that this is how they should look, and it is very tasty. And then she handed the piece to the gentleman. He decided to try it. Such a combination could not be bad tasting, so she expected a good reaction from the master. Suddenly, the Duke covered his head with his hand, and she thought that there was poison in them, but she was fine. Edward said she was cute and touched her nose. He never thought he would be so nervous about his fiancée looking at him. And then he looked to the side and asked what it was. It was marigolds. They were so beautiful. So she asked him to collect some from the fertilizer. The Duke said that if she liked these flowers, he would plant them all over the garden. Angelina got a tan that everything is fine, and that's not the issue. She loves other flowers too. It seems to be getting a bit uncomfortable, so Angelina asked him if he wanted a flower crown. He was surprised and asked again. The girl noted that it seemed like it would look good on him. If so, he asks her to do it, but what if he doesn't like it? She suggested it to change the subject. Her wreath doesn't look very good. Here she broke the flower. It needs to be even more beautiful, even better. Edward asked how long to wait because he was already bored. Angelina said that she did. The gentleman asked which one was for him. This is all for him. She wanted to give the most beautiful ones, but she doesn't know which ones he will like. The Duke was surprised that all this was for him. He would like any wreath from his bride. After which he asked if this wreath suited him. Angelina was so scared that she didn't pay any attention at all. Her face is very beautiful. So she said so. The Duke took the second wreath and said that she must have one too. The gentleman noticed that she looked very beautiful with the wreath. Strange, a beautiful garden, and a favorite dessert flowers. Smiling Edward in a good mood. It feels like yesterday's events were just a nightmare, but that's not the case. The Duke decided to ask her what she was thinking about again. Angelina was simply surprised that they were wearing matching wreaths. The gentleman was delighted that she liked the idea, but it was not so. Edward said he would wear it if she wanted, and they could also come up with other matching items. Angelina didn't understand who would want to dress like a sick psychopath like us. Angelina wondered when she would be able to walk on her own 2 feet. After which she turned to the Duke and asked what kind of place that was in that direction. When Angelina saw his face, she realized that she probably shouldn't have asked about this. The Duke doesn't like to repeat himself twice, so he asks her to listen carefully. This is a very scary place. She can't go there. Angelina didn't want to believe that there was a torture chamber there. Edward is worried because she is very weak morally, and it is better not to even look in that direction. Angelina agreed, and her fiancé noted that this was simply excellent, and she should see only pleasant things. The butler greeted the gentleman and was very surprised when he saw him. Edward asked if it suited him because his fiancé had made the wreath. Seth said after a silence that the lady is very capable. She is simply incredible. Edward found it so satisfying to watch her do this with her little hands. After which the gentleman asked what had happened with the warning to the knights and servants. They have taken appropriate measures to prevent problems, so the gentleman has nothing to worry about. Edward asks them to increase surveillance inside just in case, and punishes them who decide to talk too much. Seth of the Master, is it true that the lady doesn't remember anything? It looks like a zoo, so they need to know what to do. Edward himself is interested to know where and how she lived all these years. She was probably just 18, which would make her about 3 years old during the jewel hunt, but father said there were no survivors. It is possible that someone took and hid the child, and it is also unclear how she could lose her memory and fall from the sky. Seth suggested trying to find out through the sharks. He doesn't know if he can find them. Well, they haven't shown their noses for the last 15 years because of the crows, and the gentleman also asked what was wrong with them. Still not searching the desert, Edward assumed the grave robbers were there too. But it is strange, and also they really irritate the gentleman. It's simply amazing that the Duke doesn't understand why the crows are combing the desert. The butler believed that it was because they wanted to find surviving fairies. Ambria had already been destroyed by the imperial family. Even if someone had survived, they would not have returned there. But the servant believed that it was because there was a guardian tree there. The Duke had no idea what power a dead tree could have if it didn't even recognize people of its own race. The involvement of grave robbers is also surprising, given the behavior of the imperial family. Huey is still investigating the case, although he's not sure he has time to do so right now. The Duke had no idea what this Assyrian was planning. The son of Emperor Assyrian, His Highness the Crown Prince. He greeted the Duke of Chevigny. The Duke had heard that His Highness was very popular. And to some extent he understands the lady's feelings, Mr. Gavrilov, that these are all rumors and exaggerations. Well, it seems to him that on the contrary, these words made the prince embarrassed and said that this was not necessary. The Duke decided to ask how long he planned to steal the hearts of all the ladies around him. He needs to find a mate, and that is the fate of the heir. The Duke asked if he was sure about that. That's true, but it's a choice for the rest of your life, so it has to be careful. The butler met his Duke and asked him how the meeting with the Crown Prince went. Not quite according to plan, but still not bad, and it seems he liked the gift that the gentleman had prepared. The Duke confirmed this and said that she and the Emperor loved such things. The Crown Prince was delighted when he saw the wristwatch. The Crown Prince said that he had exceeded his expectations and that only he could have prepared something like this. The Duke was glad that he understood this, and that these precious stones seemed to be of the highest quality. The Crown Prince believed they came from the Duchy of Payton. That's so encouraging. The two dukes of the empire have a firm grip on the entire gem industry and the continent, but he mentioned the Payton Duchy. The butler asked if there was a candidate for the position of Crown Princess. Well, that's not true. He's the kind of person who will openly tell me about his true feelings. He asked where the stones on the watch came from. Butler found out that he had brought this up on purpose. Payton owns the mines. It must be the oracle. The Crown Prince's oracle. A lot of effort and money was spent because his oracle mentioned the Crown Princess. He needs to find the owner of the precious stones, win her heart, and be saved, and he was so happy when he learned about the prophecy. The owners of precious stones have always been considered the Chevigny, or even stones that are simply dug out of the ground are considered precious. Without craftsmanship and design, their true value cannot be revealed. Their Lillian simply had to become the Crown Princess, so he ordered his butler to start implementing the plan. Then his daughter knocked on his door and asked if she could come in for a while. His precious Lillian came. It seems that His Highness will soon choose a crown princess for himself. Liliana was in complete shock and asked if it was true. Her father confirmed it. The girl was very happy because she decided that then she would become his bride. The Duke said that this was certainly true because the owner of the precious stones was Lillian and no one else. Lillian said that he was the best and she loved him very much. No matter what happens, he will definitely make her the crown princess. Edward asked the butler to formally announce the engagement. Seth asked the gentleman if he thought it was a good idea, as it would certainly increase the crow's surveillance. The gentleman thought that it would be more interesting this way because he was happy at the very thought that he would soon deal with them. In this case, you will need to prepare for the hunt and do it very well. Seth asked the gentleman if it was okay that there were only a couple of days left until that time. Edward did not understand at all how much longer he could wait. Turetsky suggested that he inform the lady. But someone said because she hasn't even awakened her powers, so it's better not to scare her. Angelina is still afraid of everything, although he treats her well, so she doesn't understand at all why she does this to him. This girl is more timid than a rabbit. You suddenly thought that her hair color is exactly like the color of a rabbit's fur. The Duke asked the butler not to allow her to leave the room that day. He says in advance that she will need to be protected. Edward noted that his bride had better be prepared and be the center of attention. The Duke of Crawford has made an engagement. He may have kidnapped someone or threatened someone. The servants don't know the details yet, so the Crown Prince asked what was known about the bride. Pugayu got married, he investigated everything thoroughly, but managed to find out only her name. This means that the Duke hid all the information, in the form of days no traces were found. The Crown Prince had never heard such a name before. The butler reported that he had checked the lists of nobles and there was no such name. This was good in principle. No one should oppose the imperial family. Everyone knows about the bad relations between the emperor and the Crawford family. If in such a situation one of the nobles agrees to the marriage, it will mean a challenge to the entire ruling family. Perhaps she is from another country. His territories are right on the border. His servant again searched for information but found nothing. Then she is just a human. But all this is somehow sudden. If he chooses a girl to betroth to in a situation of conflict with the imperial family, then it must be someone influential. Perhaps he decided to have an heir, and it seems the Duke doesn't care about the bride's origin. For many generations, they were promiscuous in their blood, so most noble families did not want to marry them. He could act quickly because he needed a successor, but he had never seemed interested in marriage before. There might be a problem with his body. It actually makes sense. After the disappearance of the jewel, the Duke's madness must be growing stronger day by day. Has he reached his limit? Because of this, he urgently needed a successor. It feels like they missed something. My father said that the Crawford curse was passed down from generation to generation. In this case, the heir will also receive it, which means he will also be like that. Dylan was ordered by the master to continue investigating this case and would immediately report if information became available. After that, the prince asked about the Duke of Chavigny. It seems that from that day on he began to work. The heir likes that he acts quickly. He asked that he invite Miss Chavigny here soon, and also that he should not forget to break the news to the Paytons, after which the gentleman called Casson. It seems that something is wrong with Crawford. Therefore, he must find out about the physical condition of the Duke and his bride. They mustn't miss anything. Crawford is a real monster who hunts very well. If you make even the slightest mistake, he will immediately bite your throat. But not this time, because the winner will only be the Crown Prince. Angelina woke up and you were the Duke again for her, and was very glad that she had already opened her eyes. He said it was time to leave the mansion. This scared her very much, and she asked again. Angelina said that crows are looking for her, so she doesn't think it's safe. Edward said he would be with her, so there was nothing to worry about. It was hard not to notice people with red eyes. She understands that he will protect her, but trouble could start if someone finds out that she is a jewel. The Duke noted that they would do it in such a way that no one would notice. There is hair dye in this world, but it only lasts for about 2 hours, and your hair will look like a broom, which is even more suspicious. Angelina was shocked that he thought it would work. The gentleman was very happy that his bride had come and asked her to sit next to him. She thought he wanted to use paint, but she wasn't sure it was safe. Edward asked what kind of light she liked. He would like to see golden hair like his. Angelina didn't even know, and she was very scared because she didn't understand what had happened. She looks like a model from a shampoo commercial, not a broom. The gentleman remarked that it was beautiful. The effect is not limited in time. They will remain like this until the master himself wants to change them, so she must not tell anyone this family secret. Angelina was very surprised by the fact that the Crawford family can use magic. She heard about it for the first time. There is no magic tower in this world. The number of magicians is very small, and they act alone, so you definitely won't find such a drug on the market. Edward also added that he had an artifact of family treasure and it could not be used without the permission of the head of the family. It looked like contact lenses. She thought there were gems inside. The Duke assured her that it wouldn't hurt, so there was nothing to be afraid of. And then he asked how she was. The girl was surprised that everything was already over, and he brought a mirror and asked her to look. The color of the eyes really did change. The girl wondered if she could escape with their help. The Duke told her that she herself would not be able to use it. Hair color, eye color, he could reverse the effect at any time. So she shouldn't even think about any stupid things. With that, they were finished, so they could go. Angelina agreed with him. And then the lady asked where they were going. Edward said that they were going to a place she would like. Angelina was shocked when she saw it. It's Charlotte, a very famous jewelry store. She wanted matching jewelry, so they're here. Charlotte is the best jewelry store, but it belongs to the family of the main character with whom he fell in love and kidnapped. Even though she is a jewel, she is curious about what will happen if they collide. The saleswoman greeted the gentleman and identified him as Seth Millian. The gentleman confirmed that she had addressed him correctly, but Angelina did not understand why. So she decided to whisper and ask him why he didn't reserve it in his name. In that case, they wouldn't have been able to say a word normally because he came with her. Edward wants her to look around in peace. He cares about her, and she couldn't believe that was possible. It's very scary to hear from this man who has a fierce image. The lady told Count Millian that she would take him there and then began to provide them with jewelry. Edward was very interested in what would suit his bride and then asked if she liked anything. Angelina said she would like whatever he chose. But suddenly she noticed something. The gentleman asked what kind of jewelry it was. There was an orange-colored fiery diamond. Among colored diamonds, it is one of the rarest. It got the highest rating. Fancy, vivid, it reminds of flowers, so the lady can't take her eyes off it. Marigolds are believed to bring happiness, and I wonder if she can become happy. The Duke decided to try these decorations on her and noticed that they suited her very well. That's why they'll take them. Edward scared Angelina a lot and then asked how she liked them. He was very curious whether she liked his gift, so the lady said that of course she did. Edward was very happy and said that he would buy her everything she needed, and then he suggested that she go for a walk. Angelina asked Edward to let her go because he always carried her in his arms. Well, the gentleman didn't understand why he should do this because she was completely safe. Angelina left the mansion for the first time, so she wants to walk around her property herself. In fact, she is embarrassed. Edward only let her go because she convinced him about the ownership. He feels uneasy when she moves away. So she has to walk holding his hand. This is the central square. She is so beautiful. And then Angelina noticed that and asked the Duke what it was. Edward said it was a fairy, and it was built by the first head of the family. Angelina was in complete shock because she knew that the jewels were treated badly, so she did not understand at all how they could build a statue of a fairy. Angelina asked him if the emperor allowed her to keep her, and Edward did not understand who would dare to touch the land of Crawford. Now she understands why the imperial family is wary of him. The servant turned to his master and said that he had something to say. Angelina did not understand at all what had happened because her husband's face changed. Edward himself walked away from her and then came up to her and said that he would need to step away for a while. It should sit and wait for him here. Angelina tensed up and asked where he was going. Edward said he had something to do, but it wouldn't take much time. Angelina grabbed him by the sleeve, and the gentleman said that it was hard for him to leave when she did that. She needn't worry because the knights will guard her, and he will be back soon. Angelina was very uneasy. She hoped that this was not connected with the imperial family. The boys accidentally threw the ball towards the lady and asked her to throw it back to them. Angelina thought that there was nothing wrong with it, so she decided to pass on the name to the ball. Angelina said that she didn't abandon him because he could have flown off somewhere he shouldn't have. The boy was very embarrassed, thanked her, and immediately ran away. She was so cute. But suddenly a gentleman came up to her and asked if she was okay. Angelina said that everything was fine and was embarrassed because she didn't notice him. The crown prince did not understand what kind of reaction this man had. Angelina felt that he knew her for sure and was perhaps looking for her, or realized that she was a jewel. Edward approached them and noted that her bride was very impatient. Because he said to sit and wait, he followed and hugged her. Edward turned to the stranger and began asking who he was and what he wanted from his bride. Edmund hugged her even tighter and ordered him not to make any unnecessary movements, unless of course he wanted to die. Edward bought her some cotton candy. After the cotton candy, Angelina became less nervous. And then she asked the Duke if he knew this man, because it seemed to her that he recognized her. Edward was surprised and assumed that they knew each other and asked if she had met him before. But Angelina said not quite. The Duke was surprised that Beryl hadn't killed that guy yet. The servant told him that the guy immediately got scared and ran away when he noticed them. Edward ordered to take him alive and not kill him. Angelina was very scared by all this, and Edward said that he would find him soon, so there was no need to worry. She is very scared. The prince was surprised that the Duke personally came out with his bride. It was unexpected. In his place, he would have hidden it well. It seems he wanted to show it off on purpose. The bride with golden hair. He asked the ravens if he had checked the color of their eyes. Now the gentleman understood that she was not a jewel, but it was unclear why he had taken her with him. He did not understand his purpose. There were no remarkable features, nothing special about it. So he really is feeling bad, and he wants to have an heir. Crawfords were always born with golden hair. And he brought the bride with the same, and the gentleman also asked what was the Duke's condition. Raven said that it was normal, so they had to continue to follow him. He also asked, what about the bride? The gentleman told him that there was no need to follow her, although doubts were not yet dispelled. It seems that it would probably be better for the prince to meet her in person. It will be quiet for a while, and the Duke doesn't even know the crown prince is very mean, so they can't relax. The servant noted that they would monitor the raven's movements. Edward asked Seth if there was any news from the sharks. 15 years ago, there was no trace of the child in the vicinity of the Muhas Desert. The Duke was unhappy because he had no idea where his bride was. Even if they didn't know anything, there was no need to worry about the ravens for now, but he ordered them to continue searching. The gentleman remarked that it suited his wife very well. Angelina was surprised when she saw what he gave her. It's not always convenient to wear jewelry on your hands, so he made this necklace. Angelina sees such a stone for the first time. The gentleman noted that it is called opal. Black stones are the most precious. Also, a necklace made of jewelry is too heavy, and it will be easier to wear and train in it. Now Angelina understood that he wanted her to get down to business as soon as possible, although it is important for her too, so she decided that she would try. Edward also gave her something else. In this box are the rings they will wear? Angelina was surprised that they were made so quickly. One specifically asked them to speed up. Angelina knew that this was probably a threat, not a request. Edward suggested that she see what came out of it. It was obvious that they had worked very hard on them. The Duke asked her if she liked finding the rings. It was immediately clear that they were a pair. Angelina said she likes them. The tongue is her enemy, so she needs to keep it behind her teeth more often. The gentleman turned to her and said that it was a little late, but he congratulated her on her engagement. Now everyone will know that she is his fiancée. For some reason, this ring on my hand feels very heavy. Edward asked Angelina to put the ring on him. She knew she could change something in the series since she was here. Even if she turned back time, she wouldn't be able to leave Edward. Therefore, she will no longer avoid him. The time has come for his rescue to take effect. Edward was asking if the ring suited him or sweeping it aside, making it immediately obvious that he was engaged. Angelina must save herself not only from Edward but also from the imperial family, so she said that now everyone will definitely know about it. She noticed that the gentleman's face changed and was shocked that now was not the right time to smile. She had never seen him so sullen before, and suddenly he hugged her tightly. Edward didn't understand at all what to do when she smiled so beautifully, because he thought that now his heart would stop, and he felt such excitement for the first time. I'm just excited, it's incredibly nice. Angelina didn't understand why this was and what had happened to him. He won't be here tomorrow. Angelina was surprised and asked if he was going somewhere. The gentleman said that the imperial family had attracted too much attention and grave robbers had appeared. There was nothing to be done about the crows for now, so at least he could have some fun. Angelina thought about grave robbers looking for jewels too. The Duke added that she must not leave her room tomorrow night. Angelina decided to ask why this was so. Edward said that it was all because monsters appeared on the night of the blood moon. Indeed, a blood moon that summons demons. At some point, strange rumors began to circulate around the world, as if monsters were appearing from the javelin. In the following years, mistrust of them spread throughout the empire. The hatred grew more and more. Angelina did not understand at all why he needed to leave on that particular night. One way or another, they won't see each other today. She feels so empty, and suddenly she thought about it. And she decided that it was all because of his beautiful smile. Before, she didn't want to see him. Now she gets upset when they are apart. Suddenly, she remembered the decoration. This is the opal that Edward gave, and it has some unusual charm about it. She needs to awaken her skills as soon as possible. When she can, it will be easier. Suddenly, she heard very scary sounds and immediately began to hide under the blanket. Angelina did not understand at all why there was no one around at such moments, and did not understand at all how she could sleep alone. She is so scared she doesn't know where she is, and she really wants to call her husband. She felt a sudden pain in her heart, and she remembered Edward's words later that he could not only know her location, but also sense if she was in danger. Angelina didn't want to believe that the blood pact worked both ways. She needed to take the stones and save Edward now because he was in danger. The servant asked the lady where she was going because it would be safer to stay in her room. Angelina told the butler that Edward was in danger. The butler said that she should not worry because the master was just checking the mansion's defenses. Well, the lady screamed that something had definitely happened to Edward and again clutched her heart. Angelina said that she feels it because he knows that she made a blood pact with Edward. Seth asked if she could determine where he was. It seemed she could, so the butler asked her to point the way and he would follow her. It took her to the place Edward told her not to go. The servant did not understand at all where the mistress came from. Angelina informed him that she had to meet Edward, so she asked him to let her through. The knight said he couldn't do it, but the butler said it was okay and asked for a pass. He was surprised when he saw the butler and then asked what happened. Seth said he would explain everything on the way. So the knight agreed to lead them, and they followed him. There might be a hidden magic tower here because the wall there disappeared literally minutes ago. An ordinary building. It couldn't be like that. Angelina shuddered because there might be some monster locked here. The sound is getting louder, and Angelina doesn't understand at all what Edward is doing here. The butler turned to the lady and announced that they had arrived, after which Angelina saw a man at the end of the corridor who was chained. She didn't understand at all what this place was for and where Edward was now, or was there another secret passage here? She heard a scream and couldn't believe it was Edward. Angelina asked what was going on here, and the butler explained that it was a curse. The descendants of the Crawford family are born with great strength, but they are also insane, and on the day of the blood moon, the condition worsens. The butler was taking the lady that nothing could be done about it. Angelina did not understand at all how she could save him. After all, she just borrowed the body of a jewel. Angelina doesn't know how to do anything with precious stones. If this continues, then he will probably die and she has no idea what will happen to her then. Angelina didn't want to think about whether she could run and hide forever. This creek asks for help, and she remembered his words that he would protect her. He took care of her all the time, and she doesn't even know how she can leave him at such a moment. That's why Angelina rushed to him. The real her is not a jewel, but the owner of the body should be able to use this power. That's why she begged her to let her borrow this power, because she had to help him. The stones began to sparkle, and she felt a familiar feeling that was like touching a guardian tree. Well, it's something else because the feeling is pleasant, something instinctive, as if Edward needed her. The knight's butler was very scared and shouted to the lady to be careful. When she turned to him, Edward immediately came to his senses and stopped growling. Angelina asked him if he remembered the day when the wind poured out. "And I was born from the flowers of these tears, and even if time stops or turns back, they will be together forever." Edward called her name. She was always scared and wanted to run away, but now everything will be fine. Seeing this frightened face, Angelina realized that she couldn't. After this, Angelina fell into the Duke's arms. He noticed that there was blood on her legs. Angelina is weak and cannot bear the pain. The butler ran up to the master and began to ask if he was okay. Edward is as fine as ever despite the red moon. Members of the Crawford family have felt it since birth, the way their veins pulsate and their blood boils. Even with the opal from Julie, it is impossible to live in peace. It alleviates the symptoms, but the physical pain and the desire to kill never completely disappear. Angelina is such a cowardly rabbit. Edward turned her hair back white and asked her to wake up quickly. Suddenly, the girl woke up, and the first thing she thought about was how Edward was feeling. She definitely saw that he was feeling better, but the Duke immediately put her back and did not understand why his bride was going somewhere immediately after waking up. Angelina asked in horror if he was okay and if something hurt him. Edward asked her with a smile if she was worried. Angelina said that of course she was, because when she saw him like that, Edward said that everything was fine because he felt great. Now he understands what it's like to have someone nearby who cares about you. Edward promised to be the same way and also asked her how her leg was. Angelina didn't understand what he was talking about. The gentleman was surprised that she didn't even know that she was hurt and didn't understand why she didn't take care of herself. Angelina doesn't even remember putting on shoes yesterday because she was in such a hurry. Edward said his hands still smelled like medicine. The rabbit needed a lot of care. Angelina was surprised that he did it all himself. The Duke confirmed this and asked if he could allow someone to touch his bride. Angelina couldn't believe it. They say that people change on the threshold of death. Perhaps he died and was reborn. Edward asked her if anything hurt, because yesterday she lost consciousness again. Angelina is perfectly fine. The Duke took her in his arms, so Angelina noticed that her hair was white again. Edward said he changed the color because it looked prettier. If you cancel the effect, she will be like a jewel and will not be able to escape. Angelina believed that she could not do such a thing because he was in danger. It's just unbelievable Edward doesn't understand how he can let her go after such wonderful words and actions. Well, he wasn't going to do it anyway. After that, the Duke asked if he should tell the secret. If he dies, then the color of her hair will return to its original color and her eyes. This also applies. Angelina knew she would be doomed if she didn't help him. Well, the Duke didn't want her to see him like this anyway. Angelina asked him if he could tell her why he was like that yesterday and why he was in so much pain. It's all about the Crawford family curse. Originally, there were different races in the world, and to protect the weakest of them, God separated humans from others and forbade them to interact. But one of the dragons disobeyed the order and entered the human world. He fell in love with a human woman. The angry god cursed their children and all descendants, in whom the dragon's blood flows to eternal madness and a short life. The dragon could not watch his children suffer, so he offered his life to the god. He begged very much that at least their descendants would be okay. After much thought, the god decided that a race was needed that would not lift the curse, but would be able to alleviate the madness. That's why he sent the dragon's descendants a javelin. That's how this symbiosis came about. The jewels help the Crawfords and in return receive their protection. Each head of the family must visit Ambria at least once, because he had to repeat the oath and get the opal. His father had given it to him. Angelina didn't understand why it was so damaged. Edward was distraught when he saw his father die and was lucky that even in that state he did not lose his effect. The Duke thought he could hold out a little longer. That's strange. In the book, Edward was fine until the Crown Prince killed him. She wonders what changed if the opal was helping him all this time. The girl didn't want to believe that she was to blame for this. There was no such character in the novel. The Javelins are the race that will bring the Red Moon and destroy the continent. The Oracle may be right, and she is bringing Edward closer to death. The Duke was very grateful to her because without her he would have certainly died. And also the gentleman did not understand why she looked so surprised. He scared her. She would never have thought that Edward Crawford himself would thank her. Apparently, he was in too much pain to even go that far. She decided to stay with him to help him, so she said that he would not suffer anymore. And all because he has her. After these words, the Duke hugged her. He scared her again, so she wonders what this time. However, he thinks she forgot something. Edward talks about the stones she learned to use them. Angelina remembered about them. The Duke said that since she remembered, you must tell everything, and what she wanted from him too. The Duke told her to say what she wanted from him. She remembered her wish. So Angelina said she wanted a guarantee that she wouldn't die. Edward was surprised because he was always busy protecting her. Angelina said that it wasn't about the ravens. She talks about him. The Duke was very surprised and didn't understand what was wrong with him. Angelina is very afraid that she will die at his hand since his hobby is killing people, but if she says so, then he will definitely kill her. He once said that he wanted to treat her the way he would treat his fiancée and made a scary face. The Duke laughed at her attempt to show intimidation. Because Angelina is more like a rabbit who wants to be friends with him. In any case, he could be in danger if she did something wrong, the Duke noted, which was true. That's why Angelina asks him to guarantee her safety. Now they are bound by one destiny. So the Duke had better promise if he wants to live a long and happy life. One thought about her words and said that he liked that they were connected by fate. Angelina was happy because then he would fulfill her wish. Edward promised her. Well, Angelina thought that they needed to sign a contract, and the gentleman was surprised that she who was so strong did not trust him. She didn't even know how she could trust a man who would swing a sword at her for every mistake. Edward decided to ask her if he had ever broken a promise. Of course not. There really was no such thing, so she agreed, but the Duke said that if she wanted it, they would do it. It is said that the hereditary principal invited Princess Shavini for tea, wants to take a closer look at the families. It really does look like that. It's going to be tiring. It's all because the oracle told the crown prince to find the owner of the precious stones. Two girls were the most suitable for the position of crown princess, Liliane Chavini and Evelyn Peyton. Two families that are engaged in jewelry business compete and cooperate with each other, and also provide the southern and eastern regions. Therefore, the crown prince's choice was obvious. He was not going to send Evelyn to the imperial family, because she will continue the family business, but it will not be easy. He does not understand at all how they can get out of this mess without offending the crown prince. Someone knocked and the master allowed him in. It was the servant who had said that she was in trouble. It was necessary to call a doctor immediately because something happened to the lady. It looks like a fever. But she never had even minor illnesses. And he talks about fever. While the doctor cannot yet determine the exact cause, it can be cured. The gentleman need not worry because fever is a fairly common disease. The Duke decided to believe him. After some time, he came to his daughter and asked if she was okay. She said that she was already fine. And she also asked for forgiveness for making him worry. The main thing is that she recovered. Suddenly, she burst into tears. The gentleman did not understand what was wrong with her. Her eyes hurt a lot because it suddenly became too bright. They just pulled the curtains. The girl said that she could not open her eyes and felt strange. Her eyes seemed to have become sensitive to light. It looks like the after effects of a fever. The Duke asked in horror how to cure it. If the lady regularly takes medicine and washes her eyes, the condition will improve. However, it will be very difficult to fully recover, so he asks for forgiveness. Evelyn immediately thought of precious stones and wondered if she would be able to look at them. Well, the butler said that it would be better for her to have less contact with bright objects. The Duke understood him and told him to treat her with all possible methods and means. Evelyn had no idea what to do if her vision didn't improve, because she will be a laughingstock if anyone finds out that the future head of the family can't even look at jewelry. They don't strive for personal mastery. Therefore, the lady does not need to check everything herself. Reliable assistance will relieve you of all problems. But Evelyn said that if it does continue, the Duke told her that she needs to travel first because she hasn't eaten properly for several days. Evelyn asked her father what her oracle had predicted. The Duke asked Farron if he remembered what his daughter's oracle was. Of course he remembers. And he doesn't understand how someone could forget something like that. If they don't find the true owner of the meter, the source of minerals, they will lose everything. Others' oracles are usually related to marriage or work, and this is a terrible and ominous prediction. The doctor turned to the Duke and said that he had something to say. It seems that a more serious investigation into the lady's condition is necessary. The Duke was surprised and asked again if he had not said that these were the usual consequences of a fever. High-temperature aching headache are common symptoms. Well, on second examination, he noticed green spots, and this is the first time he's seen anything like this. These are not typical symptoms of fever. If they find out what this disease is, the Duke needs to know if a way to cure it can be found. The doctor asked for forgiveness because he could not guarantee anything. The master understood him, so he can go. The servant came to the master again and said that they were in trouble. Their Elia mine collapsed. They received an invitation to a ball from the imperial family. Well, Edward ordered it to be burned. They have some important announcement. The head of the family should be present, but the master told him to ignore it. Rumor has it that in the southeastern region, Lady Peyton has developed vision problems due to the effects of the fever. She doesn't go anywhere and can't look at bright things. Around the same time, a collapse occurred at the Ilia mine, which belonged to the Duke. It all somehow suspiciously coincided, and this could be due to the course of circumstances, but it is unlikely it means that someone began to act. The butler asked if he needed to know more about it, but the gentleman told him that it was not necessary because he knew who was involved. Someone who wants to establish ties with the imperial family, or someone who wants to deprive a famous noble family of power. It is possible that both options are correct. The gentleman decided to ask if there was anything else. Edward also received an invitation to the garden fair. Edward didn't understand at all why they were inviting him again, so he said to burn it, but suddenly asked him to stop. Angelina knew it was definitely an opal. Usually, gemstones stop absorbing energy when activated, but this opal keeps doing it, and it's also a sign it wasn't in the gem she activated. It is not at all clear why it is different. Perhaps there are some letters or a pattern. Some of the gems are hard to recognize, and it may be because she is not a full-fledged jewel. Angelina decided that she couldn't have all the abilities, but she couldn't be absent from them either. Suddenly, the Duke approached her and asked what her words meant. Angelina was very scared, although she only said one word, "No." Edward didn't understand why she was so surprised, and he was surprised that she was still afraid because he promised that he wouldn't kill her. That's not the point. She was scared because she suddenly heard a voice, although she was alone here, so she asks him to knock on the door. His fiancée is so timid. Well, there's nothing to be done about it, so next time he'll scream when he comes, Angelina asked him to just knock. Edward asked how she was and if she had looked at all the gems he had brought. Angelina noted that she was almost finished, so the Duke asked her to take a few pieces that would be needed. The girl was very surprised and began to believe that he was taking the rest. Edward did not understand what this meant, because she would not be able to carry everything on herself. He's right after all, so she picked out some stones for herself. It's just great. And then the gentleman asked the butler to take everything else. Angelina knew he would take them. She should have taken the expensive ones, at least a few more. Suddenly, the Duke asked Angelina if she liked the flowers, and she confirmed it, then asked why he asked that. Edward just got an invitation to a garden fair, and when she heard about it, she was scared. This is the place where the characters' fates get mixed up. But she started to feign misunderstanding and asked what it was. Edward said that it was something similar to the flower festival that was held in the capital of the empire, and he was not there either, so he does not know the details. And then he asked her if she wanted to go there. Angelina is afraid to go to the capital where the imperial family is. Well, this is a great opportunity to get the sword of Saphiro. In order for her and Edward to have a normal life, she needs to go to the fair. The gentleman was surprised that she did not want to go there. And then I asked her to just say it because there was no need to strain herself so much because it would hurt. Angelina said that she wanted to go to the fair. Edward asked her not to think about anything else, just say whether she wanted to or not. A man who hates the imperial family so much does not put it in first place for me for this reason. At times like these, she wants to be selfish, but because of him, she won't be able to escape. Edward asked her what she had decided, and then the lady said decisively that she wanted to go there. Not just any way, but with him. Edward hadn't intended to send her alone anyway, but he was glad to hear it. It turns out that they will go together because they can meet the imperial family. Even though they annoy the Duke, the constant attacks of the ravens alone are enough the lady thought so. That's why they're going. Angelina was very grateful to him and became embarrassed. But after the gentleman asked if this was her entire reaction, Angelina did not understand what a person who fell from the sky with empty hands could give. It was like asking a beggar for money, so she asked him what he wanted. The Duke showed his cheek, and Angelina thought that it would be better if she did not understand him. But Edward made such an important decision for her, so she decided to kiss him. And then she immediately stepped aside and asked if that was enough. The Duke noticed that it was strange and became curious about what it was made of. Her touch makes him full, although he doesn't eat anything and his head is spinning. He thinks what she did in her hands, but he likes her lips more. Angelina was not morally ready. But suddenly, a servant interrupted them and informed the master that the shark captain had returned. Edward told the butler to tell him that he should go to the study. Now he helps Angelina calm down a little. As soon as she began to get used to him, he immediately attacked her. There will be many events in the capital of the empire, so you need to be prepared. By the way, they will be able to meet Peyton there. In the book, at this point, Evelyn was suffering from the effects of a fever, and it was probably difficult for her to even be in a bright room. But the disease was not a simple fever. Akita is much more serious than a common cold and has very serious consequences. And this pain is caused by a poisonous plant akra, and it was not by chance that she got sick. Only towards the end of the story will Duke Peyton find the culprit who stole Evelyn's dream. This process was carefully planned by someone. The maid suggested that the mistress go inside already, and she agreed. In fact, she doesn't want to get involved in this battle because her first priority is survival, and Evelyn's illness needs to be overcome somehow. And all this in order to obtain the Sword of Saphiro, which is located in their estate. She is very curious about how she can cure her without revealing her power. In the West, the sun is always very hot in the book on such weather. Suddenly, the mistress remembered something, and the maid did not understand anything. Angelina asked Jenny if she could bring Seth to her room. The man was shocked that the gentleman was okay, and said that he should have been there for him and protected him. Edward told Hughie that he should take his hands off if he didn't want to lose his head. He didn't understand how he could say such terrible things. Because the gentleman doesn't even know how much he was worried about him, Edward noted that he knew he was fine, so he didn't see what there was to worry about anymore. Well, when he heard that he was in danger, his heart sank. The Duke said that he had Angelina, so there was no need to worry. Hughie was glad that the lady was with him, although they didn't know where she came from. Still didn't find anything, and he investigated in other countries but still couldn't find anything about her. If Hughie didn't find it, the crows wouldn't succeed either, so the gentleman decided to ask what he had found out. Hughie was looking for information about grave robbers. There are rumors that ancient treasures are hidden in the Muhas Desert. There are different versions, but the most likely one says that we are talking about precious stones. Edward thought it was too ordinary a treasure. Hughie noted that naturally the stones were not ordinary. There was a rumor that there was a mysterious gem there that felt like a living flower. The Duke was shocked and asked if the stone could be alive. It was an ancient treasure, so anything was possible. It is also said that in the ancient kingdom of Ukals, it was considered sacred. Edward considered this specific information, and he agreed with him. It looks like the imperial family is looking for him. The Duke decided to ask him why he thought so. There were various theories and speculations that appeared and disappeared, but as soon as they died down, someone would reignite everything. As soon as rumors about the desert began to spread, the crows immediately began to stir. This is all definitely connected to the javelins. The imperial family that exterminated them is looking for the treasures they left behind. But it is not clear why they do this, and what kind of village is hidden in this precious stone. If the hypothesis is correct, then the imperial family exterminated them, not only to get rid of the Crawfords. The gentleman asked Hughie to find out more about the stone. The man said he could be trusted. And then the butler knocked on the master's door and said that he had a report. The lady asked Seth for a favor. The Duke was surprised and asked what it was. The butler said that she asked him to help her prepare a gift for him, and this greatly surprised the gentleman. He didn't understand why this was happening all of a sudden, because his birthday wasn't coming soon, and it was too early to celebrate the day they met. Hughie thought that you don't always need a reason to give gifts, and it seems that she just likes him. The lady said that she wanted to surprise him. Edward asked what kind of gift it was, and the gentleman gave him a package with glasses drawn on it. When Hughie saw the black stone, she remarked that it was quite unusual. The Duke agreed with her and asked why 2 designs. Seth said that the lady said that the round frame is a test version. It turns out that there will be only glasses. Seth asked the master if he could help, and the master told him to do everything as she said. The lady asked him to keep it a secret from her because she wanted to make it a surprise. Edward understood him and said that he would pretend that he knew nothing. And then the gentleman asked the butler to make another pair of glasses of the same shape. And then the gentleman asked if there were any other questions. The butler reported that news had come from the wolves. They didn't find him, but the search continues. It looks like he's heading towards the central region. Edward was angry and noted that he should have been killed back then. The terrible thing is that the guy behind her eyes who can't stand him knows the most about her. He also told Hughie to let the sharks go. Hughie understood and bowed, but he must never lose sight of them. He was being chased by wolves, and it seemed that it was definitely the Duke of Crawford. Apparently she is his fiancée, and he thought that he would never see those eyes again. He was shocked with you that she had been in the West all this time, but for some reason he couldn't find her. Maybe she was avoiding him on purpose. She should have waited. If she had trusted him and waited, it would have all been different. This man considered himself pathetic because he was offended by the fact that he was abandoned. A servant came up to him and informed the master that the chase had lost its trail. That was good, and they had done a great job. We need to start moving tomorrow, but the gentleman said he needs to find out something. Tuga was supposed to find information about the Duke of Crawford's fiancée. His servant was scared but agreed. The man connected that he needed to know, and he also needed to make sure of everything. It was time for them to get into the carriage. Angelina turned back and said that she thought so too. The day of the trip to the capital has arrived and they are indeed leaving the West. Edward grabbed her and told her that she shouldn't lean out of the carriage like that because it was unsafe. Angelina promised that she would be more careful, but this is not enough because she is very weak. The girl said that she was the most ordinary person because Edward was different from everyone else. Edward turned to Angelina and told her to look. She saw that he took out the jewelry and noticed that it contained the same precious stones that Edward had taken last time. Angelina asked him if he asked her to give them to prepare jewelry for her. It was something like insurance. He made it into a bracelet so she could wear it without attracting attention. The stones can be replaced at any time, so there is nothing to worry about. He even taught that they will lose their power. Angelina thought she knew Adeno well because she read the novel, so now she's wondering if it's true. And the curse and the pain he experiences. Such details were not described there. At first, she was simply afraid of him. Edward didn't understand what was going on and assumed she didn't like him. Well, Angelina said that it wasn't about that. She was just grateful to him for the bracelet. Edward noticed that she spoke so quietly that he didn't hear anything. Well, the girl said that he heard everything that she thanked him. The Duke was surprised and asked when she had become so bold. But Angelina said that she was not bold at all. He also said that it would take 2 weeks to get to the capital. Edward noted that this was more than enough. The Assyrian Empire has several warp gates, in the center in the east and in the south. It would be convenient to use them. The road from the west to the capital is long, but for this you need to notify the gatemaster. The Duke wants to remain unnoticed. It was decided to use the southern gate. Edward does not want her to faint because of the long journey. He's so protective of her, and it's all because of her. Angelina asked if he said that the southern gate is in Madoran. It takes about a week to get there, even if you're not in a hurry. One confirmed that it usually takes a week. Well, on the way there, they will stop in Khaitan. Angelina was shocked and asked what it was. The opening of the festival took place today. Edward noted that it was just in time. Angelina couldn't believe that they had come here just for this. The Felicena festival is held to celebrate a big catch, so you can eat grilled fish here. The lady was surprised with you that he liked fried fish, but he said that he didn't really, but she likes seafood, so they are here. Angelina was in complete shock that he came here because of her and couldn't believe it. Edward, who is called an arrogant and cruel dragon, has changed his principles and is now enduring inconvenience for her sake. Afterwards, the gentleman asked her what she was doing because she was in pain. Angelina was convinced that she was not sleeping. Edward smiled and was surprised that she liked it so much, and noted that it wasn't for nothing that he had racked his brains for so many days. Since his bride can't wait any longer, he suggests that they go for a walk. The festival is in full swing. Everything here is so different from the West. Besides, all eyes were on them, and she expected it, but she still felt somehow uncomfortable. Edward had never been out of his own land before, so no one would recognize him. If they knew he was the dragon, they wouldn't stare at them like that. But here he is, perceived as an ordinary guy with a handsome face. Angelina asked him if he was angry, and Edward confirmed this and said that it was all because everyone was staring and looking at her. But Angelina was sure that they were all looking at him, and she was also surprised with you that he didn't like it. The Duke confirmed this and added that the mood immediately deteriorates. On the last walk, he behaved as if he was bragging about her, so she does not understand at all how to adjust to him. Then she suggested that he return to the hotel, but he refused. He wants to show her the sea. Angelina was simply delighted because in front of her was a very beautiful azure expanse. Edward noticed that his rabbit was very excited. How could he say that she could look calmly? Angelina hoped that nothing would happen if she dipped her feet in the sea. After that, she suggested that her husband try it too because it was very unusual. But Edward refused because he liked watching her more. Angelina asked him not to embarrass her. But it was true. So beautiful that he didn't notice how time flies. Angelina asked him not to say that again, and the gentleman didn't mind at all. He embarrasses her with his touching words, so she turns away. Suddenly, she came across a shell and was very happy because she hadn't seen one for a long time. She collected these as a child, so she thought about how many she should get. Suddenly, the man shouted at her to be careful. Angelina did not understand what was going on. A ball was flying at her and the lady had no idea how to dodge it, so she simply closed her eyes. But Edward covered her, and then he asked if she was okay. That's why he can't leave her alone. Angelina said she was just surprised, and then Edward turned to the guy and asked if he was ready to pay for threatening his fiancée's life. Angelina was just confused, and he called it a threat, so she thought about whether she should intervene. The gentleman apologized and said that due to his carelessness, he had caused them inconvenience. He is from the family of the Earl of Ailes, Benjamin Ailes. As an apology, he would like to make amends for the damage caused. Advent said that if he had his way, even his death would not be enough, but his bride would not want that, so they would accept compensation. So he will have to please his wife to react so calmly to Ed's threats. He is young, but despite this, he is quite smart. Angelina was afraid that a massacre would begin on the shore, but fortunately it was avoided. The lady asked her husband if he was going to return to the hotel, but he said that he was not going to do so yet, because they haven't seen the most interesting part of the festival yet. Angelina did not understand at all what he was talking about, and suddenly she saw fireworks and was in complete shock. The gentleman asked how these fireworks were, and it was very beautiful. If she likes it, then they will do the same at their festival. After his father died, loud noises began to irritate him, so he banned fireworks. Well, now everything is fine. He is with her, which means there is peace in her soul. If something was wrong, she could tell him, but suddenly they heard something strange. Angelina couldn't believe it. There were a lot of monsters around them. She didn't understand where they came from. The Duke had no idea where these monsters came from, because the appearance of the blood moon was still a long way off. According to Edward, these monsters appear when the red moon appears in the sky. Simply put, when the blood moon rises, so she doesn't understand at all why they are here now. Edward told Angelina to wait here for a bit and covered her eyes. He'll sort everything out and come back. Angelina was very scared and wanted to hide somewhere, but Edward could go crazy at any moment. So you can't stop watching him. Suddenly, she attacked the gentleman from the other side. The monster started attacking that same Benjamin child. They need to leave. Angelina thought about whether she could somehow help him. If she came up, she would only become a hindrance. Right. If he runs here, then Crawford's warriors will be able to protect him. So the lady began to call him to come to her. The servant asked Mr. Benjamin if he could go alone. The servant took out the sword and told the master to run. Angelina was very worried. There was just a little bit left, just a little bit more, and the monster almost pounced on him. Angelina started screaming, and the Duke immediately heard it and called her. Angelina did not understand at all how this happened. If she left him, he would soon die. So Edward immediately went towards her and killed that monster, and the servant approached the boy. Benjamin is barely breathing. It's too early, very serious. If we do nothing, he will die. So Angelina decided to take the bracelet off her leg and use her magic. Well, Edward grabbed her and said she shouldn't do that. That's true if she uses the village to me here. Then all further plans will end in failure. But if she can save him, then she cannot stand aside. So Angelina said that she really wants to help this boy, but it is very dangerous. So Angelina asked Edward to take them to a quiet, secluded place because he could do it. The Duke remarked that this was a very immodest request, but if they allowed this child to die, she would suffer for the rest of her life. The Duke said that he understood her and then hugged her and asked her not to cry. He ordered the servant to take the boy and carried him into the tent. Everything was as she thought. It will be difficult to cure him with only the stones she has now. But the power of the jewel can save him, so she decided to use magic to the fullest. Edward is irritated, enraged by everything. He couldn't avoid this topic. He tried to leave him to die, but she said she would suffer for the rest of her life. This cannot be allowed even if they thought something wrong about him. The Duke did not understand at all where they were crawling out from. No matter how much you cut, there is no end to them. The servant noticed that something was wrong with these monsters. Edward decided to ask what. He looked to the side where his wife was and could not believe that these monsters could feel the power of the jewels. The Duke did not understand how this happened and asked the knight if the monsters had disappeared when Angelina went to the tower. The knight confirmed it and said it was the same as now. Until today, he thought it was because of his condition. Well, it's all connected to the fact that she's a jewel. Not only was there a guardian tree, but the monsters had this reaction too. No one should know about this. The man suddenly began to feel something strange. He had no idea what to do because his monsters were ignoring his orders again. He wanted to believe me that it could be because of Duke Crawford. His progressive madness affects the animals. They first behaved strangely on Crawford lands. Why would someone who had spent his whole life in the West go south? Well, something doesn't add up. If madness is to blame, then the previous Duke couldn't have died like that. At that time, the demons still obeyed him. Then he doesn't understand at all what's happening, just as he thought for a long time. Now half of the magic stones are activated, and this is a problem. Using monsters to take their life force and put it into stones that would be ideal. Well, after that, once it became known that the existence of monsters here was inevitable, the results stopped appearing. If it weren't for the fact that when the magic was strengthened, there would be no way to resist the restrictive power of the guardian tree. He thought that today he would definitely absorb all the life energy of the monsters, but his plan failed. In any case, we need to find the Emperor. Meanwhile, Benjamin began to wake up. The man said that if he was awake, he should get up. Benjamin, horrified, asked where he was now. The boy was at the Winston Hotel, and since he came to his senses, he could leave Edward's room. He immediately began to apologize. The Duke asked him to wait somewhere near the hotel because he had sent a message to the Count, and they would come for him soon. Benjamin was in shock, and I started asking how long he was unconscious, but not even a day had passed. It was strange. I was in so much pain that he couldn't get up. The master told him not to be surprised because he called a familiar magician and he cured her. And now he must listen carefully and keep it a secret that his familiar magician cured him. Edward merely saved him from a pursuing monster. And then the Duke asked Benjamin if he understood him. The boy said that he remembered everything. Meanwhile, Angelina was wondering if Benjamin would ever wake up. She wanted to be responsible until the end and look after him. Well, her husband said that they wouldn't be together all night and he would look after him himself. Angelina thought that there was nothing wrong with this, so she was surprised, and suddenly her husband called her. The girl immediately jumped up and started asking what was wrong with Benjamin. Edward was surprised that the boy was more important than him now. Angelina said that it is not so, and of course he is more important. It's just that the sooner Benjamin wakes up, the sooner he can rest. That's why she asked. The gentleman said that he had woken up and was as good as new, he informed the Count, so that she could no longer worry. More importantly, he had worked very hard to look after the sick man, so he asked her if there would be a reward. Angelina said that he was a good boy. Edward was very surprised that the award would be just words. Because he did everything so that she would not worry and watched over this child all night. Angelina asked what she needed to do. Then the gentleman noted that she knew herself and pointed to her cheek. The girl was very embarrassed and said that she would do it only once. The gentleman had already offered her his cheek. Well, she did it once, so she can do it again, because they are already engaged. Nothing complicated, but for some reason she is shaking. The gentleman opened his eyes in anticipation and noticed that it was cute because she was so diligently reaching for his neck. Angelina was incredibly beautiful, and that's why he decided to kiss her himself. But this kiss was on the lips, so Angelina immediately jumped up and asked him to stop it. She started screaming and asking why he had gone so far. It was the first time. It was so unexpected for Angelina because he didn't even ask. The Duke was surprised that this was her first kiss. Even when he was catching monsters, his heart had never jumped out of his chest so hard. That's why the gentleman said that this wouldn't work, and that they definitely needed to take a walk. Angelina did not understand why it was so sudden and really wanted him to put her down on the ground. The man greeted the Lord and noted that the road was long and probably tired them. Well, people said that everything was fine because they got there thanks to the teleporter, and he was sorry that they couldn't arrive earlier. The gentleman said that it was nothing special because he had only contacted the Archbishop yesterday, and he was also grateful that he was still able to arrive. The Archbishop asked if they had finished burying the bodies. While they are in the process, it is not easy to establish the identity of each one. The man asked to first be taken to where the monsters appeared. When the Archbishop tasted this sand, he felt a very dark mana. His subordinates asked if this was a bad sign, and he noted that it was all quite contradictory. In that case, they must take action in advance in the temple, and the Archbishop confirmed this. But he turned to his subordinates and said that it was not time to come out of the shadows. Angelina was simply delighted when she saw the capital of the empire. Genoa and Lillian will meet here soon. According to the story, Edward may develop an interest in Lillian. Therefore, Angelina did not understand at all what to do, and her husband believed that she was simply seasick. The girl said that everything was fine, but he didn't understand why she had that expression on her face. Angelina is just a little worried Edward didn't understand at all when his fiancé would stop being such a coward. Edward said that she didn't have to worry because he was next to her. She just didn't have to think about anything. By the way, this is also his first time in the capital, and he is surprised that everything is so white. This doesn't suit this stinking place at all. Angelina giggled at this. The gentleman was surprised that she had just laughed. Angelina assured him that it was not a joke. Edward asked her to laugh again, and it surprised her very much. He asked her to laugh like that. Angelina understood him and tried to giggle again. She didn't understand at all what to do, because I thought he must have been really angry. So I started asking for forgiveness and saying that it really wasn't a joke. Edward laughed, too. Angelina didn't want to say who that he was teasing her now. It's just the first time he's seen her laugh so sweetly. And it's weird, because when others laugh, it spoils his mood, but when his bride does it, it's so sweet that he's ready to die. So Eden asked her to always be as happy as she was today. Angelina told him to look because it was the first time she saw so many people. They had such a long line, so she decided to ask what this place was. Edward didn't even know how to explain, so she said that if they were interested, they could go and see. It's the smell of baked bread, and it looks like it's a bakery. Angelina was just delighted. Edward noted that there were no strange pastries that she liked. Angelina noted that perhaps he would be inside. Edward said that they should go in right away, but Angelina tried to stop him because she thought that they should wait like everyone else. The Duke did not understand why she thought so. The lady said that all these people had been waiting longer, and he would not like it if someone pushed forward. That's why Angelina believes that they must definitely wait. Edward said that since his fiancé wanted it that way, they would wait. It's good that everything went smoothly, but suddenly she saw snow-white hair. This girl asked about her cake, and the servant said that it was already packed and ready. This is Liliane Chavini, and I was immediately let in. Angelina did not think that they would meet so soon, and then she looked at Edward and wanted to say something, but at that very moment Edward appeared next to that woman and grabbed her by the hair. Edward asked furiously what it was. Angelina was very worried. Liliana asked what he was doing. The Duke said quieter and more meat to scare his bride. Lilian asked in horror if he even knew who he was being rude to. Edward turned to Angelina. He asked her what she had told him before entering. She had said something about the line and that they had to wait. That's exactly it. Angelina couldn't believe who got angry about it. Edward didn't understand at all why she dared to walk in the middle of the line. Lilian was simply horrified and screamed at him to take his hands off immediately. The woman's guards immediately appeared near him, and the man laughed and asked what the hell that was. She said if he couldn't obey orders quickly, then she couldn't guarantee that he would survive. The servants took it for their own and asked her if she was okay. She told him because he was a very ignorant man. She also told Edward that he would pay with his life for the harm he had caused. Well, she, as an aristocrat, will be magnanimous. When she saw him, she immediately became embarrassed. She told him to get on his knees and apologize, and then she would forgive him. Edward asked her who she was to decide whether to forgive him or not. Slova was told that he was rude because it was the Duchess of Chavigny. Now Edward knew that this was the very same cur of the Duke of Chavigny. The Duke's knights immediately seized the servant and handed the sword over to his master. He also tried to remain patient, but familiar behavior was beyond any bounds. The Duchess did not understand at all how he dared to point his sword at Chavigny and asked him if he really thought he could get away with it. Edward told her to be quiet and asked if he should cut her hair to make her shut up. That's bad. Angelina hasn't held the sword of Saphiro in her hands yet, so there's no point in provoking Duke Chavigny. It would be dangerous to predict such a situation, so she grabbed her husband's hand and said that she had a headache. So she wants him to screw it up and they'll come back, but Edward said that as soon as he finishes, they'll leave right away. It didn't work, so Angelina started thinking about how she could talk him out of it. Angelina shouted that if they left now, she would do for him whatever he said. Edward, you went back to her and asked if she would really do anything. Angelina confirmed this and said that that is why they will go. The girl persuaded them, and since the conversation turned to this, they would leave. Edward asked the salesman what time the store opened, and he said at 9 in the morning. Tomorrow, his knight will stand first, so he must pack cakes and scones, one of each kind. Then he told Angelina that they would go and immediately took her in his arms. Lillian was shocked that he did this to her, and now he's just leaving. She'll definitely find him and make him regret what happened. As expected, the capital is not for him. Angelina sighed nervously. The girl asked Edward if she could ask him a question. She noticed that the Duchess's hair was platinum, and that's why she wondered if she was a jewel. Edward said it wasn't a real color if she really was jewelry. You wouldn't be able to walk around with your hair showing. Also, her eyes don't look like gemstones, so don't worry. She may have used an artifact to hide her eye color. Well, Edlin said that was impossible because only Crawford had such an object. He was not interested in her from the very beginning, because he already has a bride. After that, he kissed her hand. Angelina noted that, and yet she is underage. She does not remember anything, does not know much about the magic of stones. She only took over this body and was not a real javelin, so if he finds another, he can easily dump her. Edward asked Angelina to look at him. The gentleman told her once again that she was his bride and that he had decided so, which meant that he didn't need anyone else. Besides, she promised to fulfill his wish, so he was very happy. Actually, he wants a kiss, and that's why he asked her if she was cheating on him. Angelina said that it was so, but suggested that he ask for something else. Until now, he has never broken his promises, and now she is going back on her words. Angelina understood him and promised that she would do it. They kissed sweetly in the carriage, after which the girl immediately jumped back and said that it was enough because she had fulfilled his wish. But Edward grabbed her and said that he would go crazy because his heart was beating so fast and he just couldn't stand it. Angelina shouted that no, he would pick her up again like last time and run. And Angelina also asked him if he knew how difficult it was, how his head was spinning if he wanted to go, then he had to go alone. Edward was surprised but agreed and said that then he wanted to sit with her for a while. He is such a scoundrel. The Duke did not understand at all how he dared to touch her and insult his daughter. The father asked the little girl if she was hurt anywhere. Lillian said that she had a slight headache. The father immediately jumped up and ordered that a doctor be called immediately, but the girl said that everything was fine and it was bearable. The Duke said she was so kind, but her father wanted to find that idiot and make him kneel before her. Lillian said there was no need because everything was really fine. Besides, she didn't even know how to punish him if they didn't even know who he was. My father told me not to worry about it because he would find it by any means necessary. Lillian asked her father not to overdo it and also fed him cake. Soon his father will catch him, and he is probably some kind of rich upstart. That is why he is so impudent and narrow-minded. Well, as a man, he is still a handsome man. She went crazy. Lillian thought about someone who couldn't be compared to the Crown Prince. The father asked her if she was okay, and the girl said with a smile that everything was fine. She tried to come to her senses because she almost became the wife of the Crown Prince. So in order to maintain power and authority, she also needs to know how to suppress the text who is lower in status. The news about the Duchess of Chavigny was spread, and the Duke also sent a letter. Crawford made a fuss about his violent methods. He also asked what was wrong with Lillian. And fortunately, everything is fine. She was not hurt, and they did not expect such an outcome, even considering that he goes to the end if something does not suit him. Well, Duke of Chavigny is not interested. In fact, he was more surprised that Duke Crawford came to the capital. He had never accepted an invitation before. The servant also noticed this. He is going to visit a garden fair. This is completely unexpected. All this is for this to provoke Crawford. He received an invitation to all events taking place in the capital. No matter what reason they give, there will be a chance to look at his bride. Also, the Duchess of Peyton arrived in the capital. The prince was surprised and asked me if he told her that it was difficult for her to go outside. The servant thought so too. The master believed that she had probably fully recovered. But this was not entirely true, and no one saw her go out into the world after arriving here. Hayton Street's reputation may have been damaged by a number of incidents, so the favor asked the prince if he was going to do anything about it. The Duchess of Peyton was rather stubborn, and he thought she would recover at her estate. Now everything is becoming more interesting for the Crown Prince, so this lifts his spirits quite a lot. Edward told Angelina that it was time for the lady to notice that it smelled delicious. The Duke said they bought it from Amanda because she said yesterday she wanted to try it. The girl was simply amazed and noted that it must have been difficult to stand in line from early morning. She asked who bought it. Edward said it was him. This surprised her very much. So the Duke thought she was touched. Angelina reacted that way because he said he would send knights. He just suddenly wanted to give her a gift he had to please his bride, and he even stood in line. Moreover, he was standing first, so he asks her to try it quickly. Angelina said that it was really delicious and was very happy. So it's worth it, and he also bought scones that she can eat all of. Angelina thanked him and noted that the scone was also delicious, but he did it all for her, so she was incredibly happy. When he made her the bracelet, when he showed her the sea every time he did something for her, his smile made her heart melt. Angelina wants to see this smile always, so she told him that she has a gift for him. Edward was very surprised when he opened the gift. There were glasses. He decided to ask why she was giving the gift so suddenly. It's not even a holiday now, as she thought he knew everything. After all, the butler is his man. Angelina said that he often goes out into the desert and eye protection from the bright sun is necessary, so she took care of him. And although this time the gift was made for a different purpose, next time she will prepare something specifically for him. Angelina said that he gives her everything. Love gifts care, so she would like to express her feelings in this way. Edward can't even joke, and Angelina didn't understand why he was joking now, and what did it even mean? To be honest, he knew that she was preparing a gift for him, so he prepared the very thing, and he asked her if she liked it. Angelina couldn't even think about it, so she is very grateful to him. The Duke was also grateful to her and kissed her, and also noted that when he thought about her caring for him, his mood immediately rose. And then he immediately said that they should try them on, and they looked just great in the mirror. Edward noted that they looked like a married couple. All the people were shocked when they came out and looked at them. Everyone was wondering who this charming couple was, because many saw them for the first time. No one knows what family they are from, but they definitely attract attention. Many people thought that he was more handsome than His Highness the Crown Prince. His handsome appearance really does attract people's attention. It would have been worse if they knew who he was. Fortunately, he pinned the family crest on me. Suddenly they heard a scream behind them. It was Lillian asking how he got there. Because only aristocrats can attend the first day of the garden fair, and is he really from a noble family? Edward asked Angelina if she wanted to see the opening, but the girl said that the flower garden would be enough. He agreed with her and said that then they would go to him right away. Angelina agreed. Lillian couldn't understand how he could even ignore her. He shouldn't even think of leaving, because she won't allow it. The Duke asked her what happened. The girl told her father that this was the man who had offended her. The father immediately became furious and asked if he was that very scoundrel. The scoundrel who had treated their Lillian so terribly. The Duke remarked that like father, like child. The man shouted that he was an ill-mannered puppy and that you could find out about his family without asking. Just look at his behavior. The Duke ordered him to kneel down and apologize to his daughter. Then he would show him mercy. The situation is not good. If a sword gets here, everything will be very bad. Edward asked if he was saying he would do him a favor and remarked that it was interesting. You can't be generous. Edward thought he survived because he could. But it turns out that this happened thanks to his fiancée. The knights immediately appeared before them and ordered the Duke not to move if he did not obey their demand. Then force would have to be used. Edward told them to try if they could beat him. Angelina approached him and tried to stop him, but the gentleman asked her to close her eyes. He promised to finish everything quickly, and then he went towards the knights. Angelina didn't understand at all what to do and how to stop her husband. Perhaps she should run up and hug him. Or faint. He's worried about her health. Well, in that case, he might go even more crazy. Angelina didn't understand at all what to do. This was enough. His violence was already going beyond the limits. The girl heard this voice for the first time, but immediately realized that it was the Crown Prince. Skin. His bride was scared, so he did not understand at all why he took out his sword in front of the lady. The prince has rehearsed this in front of the mirror hundreds of times. It really pisses the Duke off. Standing in front of the Crown Prince, one must keep a straight face. He planned to do everything according to plan, but he got in the way. Duke Shavini was very surprised when she found out that the guy was the Duke of Crawford. All the guests were also in complete shock when they heard who this man was. He was the same crazy Western dragon. But suddenly Edward turned to them and ordered them to shut up in an instant. After this, he turned to the knight and said that if anyone opened their mouth, he should tie them up. Now everything is fine. The Duke has settled everything, so he took Angelina in his arms again. He said that his wife should not be afraid because he would protect her. Duke Chavigny was in complete shock when he realized that this ignorant man did not even greet His Highness. The prince remarked that he seemed to value the lady very much by his side. The Duke of Crawford had wounded the lady, but the prince noted that he did not see any damage. He was so worried about her. Edward remarked that he thought His Highness was missing something. He never leaves alive those who are against him, and he doesn't even give any concessions to girls. There is only one exception, and that is his fiancée Angelina. Angelina didn't understand why he kissed her so suddenly, because her heart started beating hard. It wasn't fear, it was something else. Edward started to think about her being sick, and he was very surprised because he hadn't shaken her very much. The prince never thought the Duke of Crawford was such a romantic, and then he asked him if he would introduce his bride to him. "Because, sir, I am very interested in what kind of girl could have captured the Duke's heart so strongly." The Crown Prince addressed her. There was no way to avoid the answer, so she told him to let her go because she wanted to introduce herself. She needed to pull herself together, so Angelina calmly said that she was asking permission to introduce herself to the little son of the Empire, His Highness the Crown Prince. She is Angelina Crawford. The prince noted that before this, she was apparently in a stupor. For this, the lady apologizes because due to an unforeseen situation, she did not have the opportunity, so she greeted him only now. Everything is fine, and he hopes that she will not have any unpleasant memories. Thanks to his generosity and care, she has found peace, so she is grateful. The prince said that then he would give her a tour of the fair and reached out to kiss her hand. Well, suddenly Edward grabbed her and pulled her back. He said that he should not touch his woman. Duke Chavigny was shocked by how impudent this prince was. In addition, the prince laughed very hard. Chavigny told him that it was not funny, even if it was the Duke of Crawford. His actions had gone too far, but the prince did not understand what he had done wrong and believed that he was talking about the fact that he had demonstrated his feelings for his bride. He understands this and doesn't want the opening to be delayed any further. Chavigny agreed, but noted that the Duke of Crawford had done something to his daughter Lillian. Besides, the prince noted that this was true and believed that Lillian was also scared, and he asked about it too late. The girl said a little, but everything was fine. The prince asked if she could look after the Duke of Crawford today, because he lives a little far from them. Because of this, he is a little group, and later he will deal with him. Instead, today he will accompany her, and later, besides, he asked if she agreed to it. Lillian remarked that it was an honor for her, and the Duke was very happy to see this. The princess inherited, it seems, likes the Duchess of Chavigny, but what about the Duchess of Peyton is unclear. Angelina was glad because fortunately everything was resolved. When they started walking, the lady was very grateful to her husband for bringing her here because she really likes it. Edward asked if it was true and told her to praise him then. Even though she shouldn't know what he means, she understands. But she won't fall for it anymore, so she pretends she doesn't understand. Angelina didn't understand at all why she was so worried. When he smiled, he was such a handsome man. Still, the lady shyly kissed him and said that he was a good boy. Edward didn't even ask or demand it directly, but she did it, and she was very embarrassed. Edward smiled and said that they would go. There was still one place they hadn't been to. Angelina noticed one man, and she became very interested in who this man was. He started walking towards them, and the girl assumed that he knew Edward, and he was surprised that he came himself. Archduke Heisen. He is the Master of the North. She knows very little about him, because he was only mentioned a couple of times in the book, but she knows one thing for sure. He is the younger brother of the current emperor. The gentleman noted that, as expected, the Duke of Crawford recognized him immediately. One noted that it was him, but he did not intend to resist. For now, and he just wants to find out something from his fiancée. Angelina was very surprised by this. It was like déjà vu. They had definitely met before she decided to think about it. She remembered where she had met him. He had recognized her, the owner of this body, back then. It was Archduke Heisen, but Angelina does not understand at all what he wants to ask her about and how he knows the owner of the body. The only one who can know Angelina is this member of the royal family. The Duke was surprised that he had no intention of opposing him, but had questions for his bride. In that case, he didn't need to run away in the first place, but he said he didn't understand what he was talking about. After all, they only saw each other briefly, then Edward was surprised and smiled. After this, he took the bride in his arms and told him that he should not wait for anything more. The Duke tried to stop him and said that he had no evil intentions. He only wants to ask one thing, and then the girl noticed his ring. Edward said that his fiancée doesn't know him so he can let go. The Duke was surprised that she didn't know him and couldn't believe it. Angelina found it strange. It was such a shock to him that she didn't know him. He didn't look like the type to kill her. Suddenly, he really wanted to ask her a question, so she asked him to wait, but Edward was against it. The girl said that the ring that the Archduke was wearing was similar to the one she had before. Maybe it will help restore her memory, and still that man is dangerous, but her husband will be able to protect her. So Edward turned and told the Duke that he would give him a chance, and he could come to the residence alone. It is dangerous to go alone, but the master knows there is no other way. But the servant told him that he knows what kind of man the Duke of Crawford is. He himself knows that this is how it will be, but he simply has no other choice. The Duke is very annoyed by everything, and these midges prevent him from spending time with her. Angelina noted that Edward doesn't know what patience is, but he's a good guy. Suddenly, Benjamin met her there and was very glad to see the lady. He wanted to say something, but the Duke looked at him very fearfully. Benjamin noted that he had not seen her ladyship for a long time, so they asked her how she had been doing. Edward remarked that he was a well-behaved boy, and the lady said that fortunately he looked healthy. She also asked him if he was in any pain. Benjamin was delighted and said that it was nothing thanks to her. The gentleman noted that he heard that they saved his younger brother. The man was pleased to meet him. His name is Caleb Isles. He is Benjamin's older brother. And he also wants to thank him again for saving his brother. Very politely, it seems the Count's family considers etiquette important. Edward noted that the boy was alive thanks to his fiancée, and if he wanted, he could thank her. The elder brother remarked that they would soon prepare a gift for her. He had not thought that his lordship was like that. Edward asked if he knew what would happen if his bride didn't like the gift. Caleb said they would do their best to please, and Angelina wanted to order her husband to stop because he was acting crazy. This wouldn't do, so she decided to change the subject and asked if they were going back to the mansion yet. The carriage was ready, and they said they were meeting friends. Suddenly, the lady noticed the coat of arms on the carriage and realized that it was the family of the Duke of Peyton. According to the plot of the book, Duke Python and Evelyn came to the capital for the opening of a garden fair. The girl said that she couldn't just stop appearing in society, so she asked her father to take her with him. Evelyn, who had not been able to attend the fair because of her sore eyes, had to return with a feeling of disappointment. Angelina knew this story from the book, but she didn't think that the Isles heir was friends with the Peyton family. Edward noticed that judging by the dark curtains, the Duchess of Peyton had arrived. It turns out that he already knows about the illness. He suggested that Evelyn only rode in such a carriage. Angelina was absolutely sure that he was a friend of the Duchess of Peyton. Although she arrived, it seems to be very difficult for her to get out since the lady spends all her time in the carriage. The lady noted that they were apparently close to the Duchess. Caleb noted that their families were on good terms, so he and Evelyn had been friends since childhood. New information was revealed to Angelina, and she knew that the Isles were vassals of the Peytons, but that they were so close she heard for the first time. Angelina whispered in my ear that they had one pair of experimental glasses left, so she suggested giving them to the Duchess. She noted that there was no need to worry about precious stones so that they would not be visible. She decorated everything with small elements. These illnesses cannot be cured, but this way she will not be able to suspect anything. Angelina wants to help the Duchess, so she asks her husband if it is possible. Edward said she could do whatever she wanted, and she was very happy. Great, that's a good start. Angelina said that she wanted to give a gift to the Duchess, so she asked if they could give it to her. Benjamin's elder son was surprised, and the lady said that there are glasses that protect from sunlight. This way, she would be one step closer to the Sword of Sapphiro. Evelyn had no idea how to get out. She undergoes regular treatment, but still cannot say when everything will return to normal. There are rumors here and there about how soon the Peyton family will fall. There was an accident in the Ilia mine, a series of incidents in the Peyton family. The scales tipped in Chavini's favor. What would the Crown Prince choose? She was a promising heir, but something went wrong. At this rate, the Crown Prince will choose the Duchess of Chavigny. The Peytons' expectations are dashed. The heiress's wings were broken. The Duchess decided that this would not do, and she had to do something. Caleb knocked on her door and then asked if he could come in for a while. The girl did not understand at all why she had to go in again and began to bandage her eyes. Caleb said he would sit across from her, and Evelyn asked what was wrong and if he had anything else to say. He met Duke Crawford and Lady Angelina nearby. They left, but they said that they wanted to give her a gift. The girl was surprised that the box was so small and thought that there was a ribbon in it. These are glasses that will protect her eyes from the blinding sun, and maybe they will help her. Damn, I've never heard of such a thing. Caleb said that Mistress Angelina sympathized with her, and this was a gift from her. Since she shows kindness, I don't know her, it means she needs something from her family. There is no good that does not have to be paid for, and yet she is happy. She asked the guy if he would help her open the gift, and when she put it on, she felt comfortable. Caleb asked her to tell him when he was ready, and then he would open the curtain. Evelyn is afraid of being disappointed again, but she needs to protect the Peyton family. If she doesn't overcome this disease, she won't be able to resist the oracle either. Evelyn opened her eyes and realized that they did not hurt her from the sunlight. She immediately ran out of the carriage, and the guy ran after her, shouting to her that she couldn't do it so suddenly, because if they want her condition, then they can't do anything. But the lady didn't listen to anyone anymore. Caleb brought her umbrellas and asked her to come back quickly, but the lady said that it was very beautiful here. The world is so beautiful when she sees it. It even makes the lady cry. Caleb was shocked that she was actually okay and could see everything clearly. After that, she hugged him and thanked him. She didn't even know what words to use to express her gratitude. His Highness will soon announce the Crown Princess. Lillian was shocked that it would happen so quickly. He ordered the heads of the family to attend the ball. The Crown Prince would not do this without a reason. Besides, the Crown Prince accompanied her all day yesterday. That means something. Lillian told her father that she was so excited that she couldn't sleep all night. The Duke noted that the position of Crown Princess had belonged to her from the very beginning. No matter how much Evelyn struggled, it was impossible to replace a person chosen by heaven. Flowers that butterflies love grow the most lush. This is an oracle she received as a child. According to it, she will be gifted with love and care, and then she will become the Emperor's wife. However, she thinks that His Highness does not understand something. She remembered the threats from the Duke of Crawford. There is only one exception. Not only did he not look at her, but he also threatened her. That girl looks down on her, but it wasn't true. Angelina is our cutie. The Duke asked his daughter what was wrong, and she said that she remembered the Duke of Crawford, whom they had met yesterday. True, an ill-mannered scoundrel. If it weren't for His Highness, he would have been punished immediately. The girl was surprised that Duke Crawford couldn't be punished. If you think about it, he pointed the sword at her, at the one who would become the Crown Princess. Even a prince can't punish a duke just like that, unless it's high treason. Her father tried to explain to her that Crawford was a crazy bastard, and that accusations meant nothing to him. Besides, this is a very important period, so it is better to be careful until an official statement is made. Lillian still agreed with him, but this was the first time she saw her father like this. He had never avoided anyone who opposed him before, and it seemed the prince had the same reaction to the Duke. He is so crazy that even the imperial family cannot control him. Strange thoughts came over her. She immediately tried to stop thinking about it, but the Duke of Crawford was definitely handsome. That's why Lillian felt embarrassed. Well, it certainly can't be compared to a principle that seemed to have been sculpted by God himself. Lillian decided she had had enough of these guesses. The most beautiful and powerful tree. The second part of the oracle says that the owner of this tree is His Highness, the Crown Prince. The day when she will have his leash in her hands is so far away from me, and then this individual will no longer be able to look down on the lady. This is how Lillian imagines her ideal reign as Empress. Angelina was shocked when she saw the gift, and it was very beautiful. Count Isles came to visit them with his wife and was extremely happy that the lady liked the gift. They added that Benjamin chose it personally. The guy said that he did not know what she would like. But she still asked if she liked this gift. Angelina said with a smile that it was so beautiful that she couldn't take her eyes off it, so she was very grateful. And also asked if she could try it on right now. The lady allowed her, and Edward said that he would do everything. After he put this jewelry on her, he noticed that it was beautiful and suited her. The Countess did not know that his lordship was such an affectionate person, so she was pleasantly surprised. Edward said that this was his bride. Their sons were already used to this and their mother basically agreed with him. The gentleman and his wife turned to His Highness and said that they sincerely thanked him for saving their son. That day, he and Caleb had some unfinished business, so they had to stay behind and Benjamin and his wife left first. He definitely got the message that they had arrived safely. Well, the next day the news came that Benjamin had not returned. If it had not been for His Highness, Benjamin would not have lived. They will not forget this even after death. The Duke said that he should not thank his bride. It was she who saved their son. Angelina noted that they were lucky to be nearby at that moment. She also managed to take his hand because Benjamin plucked up his courage and ran to her, and Edward also helped her by dealing with the monsters. The Count was immensely grateful to the lady, and she smiled at him in response. The atmosphere became serious. In fact, he also had a gift, so he wanted to wait for the right moment. Angelina was in complete shock and could not believe it. The Count confirmed that it was a golden tablet and families. The Isles family owns a company that is among the top 5 in the empire. The Isles family is also involved in the promotion and sale of Peyton gemstones. Therefore, the sign of this company is a priceless gift. Angelina did not even know whether it was possible to accept it. This tablet is given to the benefactors of their family, and he hopes that the Duchess will accept it. If she shows this thing to their company, she can get help at any time so she can use it freely. He is so sincere, and it is very pleasant to the lady. Edward noted that they tried very hard, and they appreciate it very much. The Count was grateful, so the Duke said that they would finish it. Well, Angelina didn't want that at all. She knows his character, but she wants to be more polite. The Countess in the carriage spoke to her family and said that she was so worried and thought she would die. There were so many rumors about his cruelty, but he was just cold. The Count also did not think that they were only giving him attention because he expected that they would take the gift and throw them out, but they were even escorted out. Angelina even wished them a safe journey. It's all Mrs. Angelina. She was very happy when he told her that Evelyn was getting better. Of course, it was she who gave those unusual glasses. Angelina was able to tame the crazy Western dragon. Mom asked if he had spoken to the Duke before leaving and asked what they had talked about. Edward asked if he was keeping the promise he made in Catan. He had to keep it a secret that the mage had cured him. Angelina noted that it was Benjamin and he should hold the floor. The Duke thought so too because the boy is honest. If you remember, it looked scary. Well, better than she thought. The Duke also told Angelina that the Peytons had written that they wanted to visit. After that, Edward asked her what she would do because it was not he who gave her the gift, but she, his wife, wanted to meet. When she studied the nobility with the butler, she became interested in what kind of person they were and almost never met a case where the heir was a girl, so she thinks that she can be proud of the fact that she is recognized as the successor. These people will be able to treat such a simple rubber band as it without prejudice. Edward turned to Angelina and said that she bore his last name and he would not leave alone those who treated the Crawfords badly. Yes, she would have been afraid of such an Edward, but they were together, so now she is not so afraid. She feels that he cares about her, so she said that she knows, so she wants to see him more often. She has an interest in obtaining the Saphiro sword, but she would also like to become friends with Evelyn. So Angelina decided to say that they should send an invitation, at least for the Duke's heir. She thinks it would be right on Crawford's part. And then the Duke laughed. Angelina was very surprised. Edward continued to laugh and said that he would invite the Duchess. The Emperor was shocked with you that she was not a jewel. The Emperor asked the prince whether he had checked with the ring he had given him. Then the ring did not react at all. The Emperor remarked that this was good, and his son said that he had doubts. He's not sure the Duke would be so protective of a girl who isn't a jewel. According to the archives, the Crawfords have always been protective of their partners. In the past, the Duke, too. The prince asked if his father was saying that crazy people can also love. Well, whether it's love or not, he doesn't know, but in any case, he chose her as his wife, so maybe he's trying to take care of her in his own way. Well, even if so, he came to the capital for me because of the bride. The prince will sow doubts that his bride can be a jewel, and he will show what he is capable of. The Emperor noted that no matter how you look at it, this is also arrogance. In fact, Crawford seemed reserved compared to the bloodlust he showed Chavini in front of so many aristocrats. The Emperor asked if he had noticed anything strange about his body. This was not the case. We need to ask Methos to check Crawford's condition and understand what goals he had in mind when he arrived in the capital. He is ill. The emperor asked his son how Caetana was doing. The prince said that the monsters had appeared despite the fact that there was no blood moon. There were more of them than usual, and Methos told them not to worry about the monsters, but he is not sure if everything is under control now. The emperor furiously asked if he wanted to say that his father was guilty. Even Methos can't keep control. The guy made a mistake, got nervous, and crossed the line. So he said that it was not so, and he was just worried. If this happened again, this worry would increase, and it would have a negative impact on the imperial throne. Father told Genoa that they knew casualties were inevitable, but enough was enough. More casualties were caused by the prince's failure to find the relic. He could not achieve anything even with the raven he gave him, and laughs to doubt the emperor's abilities. He's like an annoying old man. He doesn't understand at all who caused the monsters to appear. He said he would deal with Crawford, but that never happened because the jewels were destroyed. He then passed the responsibility on to his eldest son, Crown Prince Genoa. Father told Genoa that there is an excuse for the untalented. There's definitely something wrong here. The prince couldn't look like he and Methos were plotting something together, although he doubts that the sources of information about the relic are Methos. The gentleman turned to the Kasan and told him that they should leave the desert at this point and conduct an even more thorough search for the relic in other regions. His father remained hesitant about subduing monsters. If the same thing happens as in Caetan, then the imperial power will weaken, and the influence of the heads of the family who will fight the monsters on their own will on the contrary increase, and then he will inherit a useless imperial throne that will lose its power. This cannot be allowed. Evelyn didn't understand at all how she should understand. She was invited to the palace of the crown prince. He couldn't help but know about her condition, and still sent a letter with an invitation. Perhaps it is contempt for the Paytons, or perhaps an intention to show one's power. Choosing the princess is easy by comparing Evelyn and Lillian, because the choice of the crown prince seems obvious. No matter what it was, if the crown prince was using their family, then she was using him as she wanted. I asked if the road was difficult for the lady, and Evelyn said that it was not so, and everything was fine. That's good. I prepared tea leaves from the east, especially for her. Thinking about tea, the crown prince did not even close the windows from the sun, knowing about his lady's illness. But still, the girl thanked him for his concern and smiled at him. In principle, I was quite surprised to hear the news about her arrival in the capital, and began to ask if everything was okay with her now. Evelyn said she was feeling much better. Genoa noticed that her glasses were rather unusual, and it was the first time he had seen colored lenses. Eveline hasn't fully recovered yet, so without them she would have a hard time. The lens is dark, it dims the sunlight. Thanks to these glasses, she is getting better and better every day. So, she thinks she will be able to attend the ball. It is wonderful, the Duke must have been relieved. The lady remarked that she was grateful and her father was quite pleased. The prince came to the main topic and noted that they said that she was preparing to become the successor. And he asked me if the Paytons had any opportunities to demonstrate her abilities. Artfully, the girl said that these are her roots and there is no other place where she could grow up, like in her family. Even though he thinks highly of her, he doesn't care that she has no interest in being crown princess. Genoa noted that her love for her family was something amazing. Evelyn noted that they gave her life. The empire was her homeland too. The girl knew it very well. The Paytons would always be loyal to His Majesty, the Emperor and His Highness the Crown Prince. The guy noted that this was true, and as I expected, she was worthy of making the Duke proud. Evelyn was grateful for the compliment. For some reason, she thought it would be more tiring. The man noticed the girl in the hallway and realized that it was Duchess Payton. She didn't quite understand what she was doing there. He heard that she can't go outside because of an eye disease, and it's probably all thanks to the glasses with colored lenses. In that case, he did it to check for the presence of precious stones, but there is no trace of them, so he just wasted his time. In any case, it doesn't matter if Jewel shows up, he'll just deal with it. There is nothing he cannot do, because there is no better magician than him. Well, it was time for him to carry out His Majesty's order, so he decided to go. At the same time, the Duke of Crawford's family, the Archduke, was grateful to be received here, as Edward wished he came here without the accompaniment of knights, so the man asked if he would let him talk to his fiancée. Ed said that if he would take his dirty look away, he would let them talk. He apologized. It's just that she looks like someone he knows, so he asks the Duke to stop it. Angelina did not understand at all who she looked like. The Duke asked what he wanted to know. The Archduke wanted to know about the girl's mother, and this brought both the Lord and the lady into complete shock. After all, it was so sudden. Sir, know that the question is unexpected, but it is really very important for him. That day when they met in front of the fountain, he actually thought he was dreaming. This was the place where he first met her. He first saw her in front of that fountain. Only now did Angelina understand why the Archduke behaved this way. He saw someone's image in her. Judging by the fact that she didn't know him, the person he was looking for might not be her mother, or maybe she just forgot him. Even if that's the case, he needs to know everything. He definitely needs to tell her something. So the gentleman asks Angelina if she could tell him about her mother. Angelina would like to help, but unfortunately she doesn't remember anything about her parents. The Archduke was surprised by this, and Angelina confirmed it once again. Edward said that his bride had no memories of what happened before she met him. She didn't even remember her name. It may have been an accident, they can't know, but when he found her there was no damage. The gentleman said there was something else that would help them figure out who his bride was. It was that ring. When he first saw Angelina, she was wearing this ring. The Archduke was in complete shock. The Duke said that it was similar to the one his guest was wearing. He immediately came to his senses and said that he and Isabel exchanged these rings when they got engaged. Archduke Heisen. He may be the father of the owner of this body. Angelina asked if this meant that he had entered into an official marriage, but they were unable to do so. After they met, they spent several months together and agreed to get married. Well, he found out that his mother had an accident and left for the capital in a hurry. He promised that they would see each other, but he couldn't keep his word. After that, they never saw each other again. He didn't even understand what else could be expected if he couldn't keep his promise. But he still wants to see her again. So he searched all over Crawford's lands in the west but couldn't find anything. Even though 17 years have passed since their separation, her face is still fresh in his memory. That cheerful smile that she gave him. Apparently she really is the daughter of these people, but whether the Archduke knows that Isabel is a jewel is unclear. He was barely mentioned in the novel, but the fact remains that Hasten is the Emperor's brother. Angelina understands the Archduke's feelings for Isabel. She decides to ask him if he knows about the inscription inside the ring. The man was surprised and decided to take a look, and then noted that he was seeing her for the first time. When they exchanged jewelry, there was no engraving on it. It is likely that the inscription appeared after the exchange. And the gentleman also asked why this precious stone was broken, but Angelina did not know how to answer because when she came to, it was like this. The gemstones were prepared by Isabel. The original single stone was split into two and set into the rings. He didn't know what kind of decoration it was. The craftsman who made it was also puzzled. Angelina was also surprised by this. The Archduke knows absolutely nothing about the ring, which means there are no traces. If so, there is only one way left. Angelina turned to His Highness and asked if she could take a closer look at his jewelry, and he allowed it. She doesn't see any difference, but oddly enough, the gem is already activated. She had no idea where the energy for this came from or where it was even located. She was near the fountain where she had first met the Archduke. The girl did not understand why this particular place. She saw the Duke saving a woman from a cart. He asked if she was really okay and if she was hurt. He looks younger than he does now, but it's definitely him. The woman said she was okay because of him. Seeing this woman, Angelina understood why she was here. Because the gentleman said that he saw her for the first time in front of that fountain, the stone in the Archduke's ring brought her back to her memories. It showed her everything, right down to the owner's clearly perceptible feelings. And the owner of the memory is none other than the Duke. The girl did not understand at all whether a person's smile could be so bright, a soft, low voice. It's Isabel. These are her memories. They really do look alike. The Archduke was surprised, not without reason, when he saw her. A man ran up to Isabel and started asking if it was her father who was hurt, and the woman said that she was okay because this young man had helped her. Father promised to repay him for his kindness, but the Blues said that it was enough that the lady was okay. Isabel called that man her father, possibly he was the grandfather of the body's owner. For some reason, she has a strange feeling. The gentleman noted that paying for kindness is their family credo, so he can calmly say what he would like. The Duke was surprised and asked if he could ask for one favor. The Archduke turned the other way to check how he looked, but his daughter and father did not understand anything. The gentleman turned to the lady and asked her to allow him to invite her on 3 dates. The girl was very surprised and asked again. Then she giggled and agreed. It seems that this was the first meeting of these two, and she also saw their other meetings. On the 3rd date, their meetings did not end there, and eventually the Archduke knelt before his lady and asked her to marry him. She was very happy to receive the offer from the Archduke, but she could not give an answer right away. Perhaps it was because she was a jewel. Still, she decided to give it a try, so she agreed to marry Damon. However, the following memories were the same as I described to the Archduke. He left home and never returned, and Isabel found out that she was carrying a child. She was very grateful to the little girl for coming to them. Her grandfather chose her name, and she will be called Amber. Her mother loved the baby very much. Isabel was not angry with the Archduke. She was only glad to bear his child. These memories were cut short on the eve of the birth. After that, Angelina fainted. Edward tried to bring her to her senses. She was looking at the ring and suddenly lost consciousness. He thought it was all because of that junk, so he immediately snatched it from her hands, but he couldn't put it away. The Duke remembered that it was the same as when she touched the tree. The Archduke asked if the lady was okay. Edward was very angry and ordered him not to come closer. She did not die when she touched the tree, but she experienced great pain. She doesn't seem to be suffering as much now, but she belongs to him and not to anyone else. So Edward picked her up and started to walk away. The Archduke asked him where he was going, and one ordered him to shut up and added that if he took a single step, he would die by his hand. The gentleman asked that the services ensure that the Archduke did not leave and that a doctor be called. Edward had never been so angry in his life in the past. If there was a fading opal in front of him, he did not worry or fret. But he doesn't understand why when this happens to Angelina, he becomes filled with anger as if he were going crazy. Edward is afraid of losing her forever. He took her hand in his. The Duke began to say that he would not be angry because she fainted, so he asked her to wake up quickly because he felt bad without her. After this, the lady opened her eyes. Edward was very happy and immediately rushed to hug her. Angelina did not understand at all why he had such an expression on his face and asked him if something had happened. She wanted him to stop because she couldn't breathe, but Edward hugged her tighter and tighter. Edward was shocked with you that the master's ring allowed him to see these memories. He didn't even know that jewels could do that. But he didn't quite understand why he had Isabel's memories in him. Angelina was also interested in this. There was also what happened after parting with the Archduke. This gem was different from the others. Angelina can't even imagine what power is hidden in it. She said that initially there was only one stone, so perhaps now both rings are connected to each other. Angelina thinks so too, but she still has doubts. The stone in Isabel's jewelry broke and lost its power, while the Archduke's ring retained its memories. Considering Isabel's abilities, it can be assumed that thanks to them she could transform already existing stones. Edward noted that she probably had powers they could only guess at. Angelina asked how much time had passed since her sudden fainting. She asked if His Highness the Archduke was expecting them. The gentleman said that he should wait, because it was his fault. Well, Angelina thought that this was abnormal, so she thought about what she should do and how she should communicate with her because he still doesn't suspect anything. Aside from the lack of memories, the Archduke is not her real father, but she would feel guilty if she told him that. The man who had been looking for his love for so long, Angelina still didn't know what to do, so Edward asked what was bothering her. He thought it was because of Gertsov, and Angelina confirmed it. He scared her again, and she doesn't understand how he knows about it. Edward said that if she didn't want to see him, she didn't have to. She had no memories either. Genya, I don't know about each other. Besides, they can only suspect how they will react to the jewels being members of the imperial family. They would never know Edward hugged his wife and said that he was here, so there was nothing to worry about. He is next to her, and that is true. She is not alone. Everything needs to be resolved gradually. In truth, she wants to pretend that she knows nothing, but the Archduke will not let it go. She had such a ring, too. If he suddenly plans to kill her, then Edward will kill him. So she shouldn't worry because this Archduke is worthless. She wanted to ask if he could protect her, and will they be able to see the Archduke together? In fact, there were no serious wounds. Damon was very grateful that they allowed him to meet again. Angelina apologized for making him wait so long. The gentleman suggested that they sit down first, and Edward told him not to bother his bride, in which he waited for the lady. Now he thought about everything, and these are his and Isabel's vow rings, and she was wearing one of them, and perhaps she is his daughter. He asked for forgiveness, which was confusing since she had lost her memory, but he doesn't want to miss even the slightest chance, so he asks him to understand. And he doesn't want to lose someone dear to him again, so she asks for forgiveness again. Angelina still can't decide if it's right to tell him about Amber and Isabel. She's only been running for survival so far, so she's not sure if she really needs to put herself in danger. She's not Amber after all. But as soon as she looked at the Archduke, her conflict was resolved because she saw her father in him. Angelina was an adopted child but received a lot of love from her parents. While her mother was struggling with the disease, she and her father were preparing for the worst. Well, when she died, the world fell apart, and even though it wasn't their fault, Dad spent a long time blaming himself. When Angelina died, he certainly missed her, so she turned to the Archduke and said that there was something she wanted to tell him. As he said, perhaps the owner of this ring is Isabel, and she thinks it is her mother. If that's true, then Mom must be dead. The Duke didn't understand what it was saying because she had said before that her memories were gone. Angelina looked at her husband, and he said that she could do whatever she wanted. So she told His Highness that first he needed to know that her life depended on what she was about to say, Angelina Zavelli. The Duke could not even think about it because he thought that Isabel was from another family. It is possible no one knew about the jewels back then. If they had not been discovered, there would have been no persecution either. Damon noticed that Edward spoke as if he knew everything. Their land was simply under Crawford's protection, so of course he couldn't help but know. The Archduke would be ignorant. He asked if there was anything else about the jewels, what they could tell him, and why she thought she was dead because of the sick. Damon noted that Isabel was probably dead, and that was why he couldn't find her. When Father went to Ambria, there were no survivors left. If the wild tribes had not invaded, then Father would have protected the jewels. Unfortunately, since Angelina read the novel, she knows why this happened. The Emperor was inciting the tribes located near the border to invade the Crawford domain. While the former Duke was confronting the tribes, the Emperor convinced that the people who would bring ruin to the Empire were the jewels. The Emperor led a pre-prepared detachment and destroyed them. It was a plan that only the West and the Duchy of Crawford didn't know about. But something strange. Judging by the Archduke's reaction and Edward's words, only Crawford knew about the jewels at that time. It is not clear at all how the Emperor learned about them and made such a plan. The gentleman did not understand at all how this girl had survived. He assumed that the Duke of Crawford had already figured it out. They couldn't find out anything. They couldn't find a single clue. Damon smelled like there were no traces left. None at all, so he can't believe it. From what the Duke has learned, it's true. It's just a miracle it all started with her falling from the sky into the arms of a crazy villain, which doesn't make any sense for some reason. She has so many secrets. What's important is not the past, but how he can now protect his bride. The Archduke noted that this was true, that it was more important, and he knew that his words would confuse the master, but he wanted to tell him something, and Damon thinks it's best to do it now. The Archduke told about something that wasn't in the book when he went to the palace because of the Empress's urgent message. And then he learned that his mother was not just sick, she was poisoned. Eventually, the Empress died and the murder could not be solved because the servant who had mixed the poison into the food committed suicide. However, there was speculation that it was the reigning Empress who did it. Everyone knew few could send mercenaries to the second heir. Damon didn't care about the throne. He thought his older brother should take it. The problem was that the ruling Empress didn't believe in it. The Archduke spent the hectic days at the funeral fighting off assassins. When everything calmed down, they were supposed to meet with Isabel, but it was too late. There wasn't a day that he didn't regret. I should have been afraid to tell about my status. Angelina believed that this was why he left the imperial palace. This is true because he wanted to find his beloved. He couldn't stay in that place any longer, where his mother was killed and the one he loved was taken away. Angelina didn't even guess. He left the house where he spent his whole life. He spent 17 years looking for his beloved. It was so hard for him to go through all this. A man who until now didn't even know about the existence of his child? It's funny to come now and call himself a father. So he will say only one thing, that he never abandoned her and Isabel, and he also asked Angelina for forgiveness for coming only now and for not being able to protect her mother, leaving her alone. Angelina stood up and moved to sit next to the gentleman, after which she took his hands and said that Mom had returned to Ambria probably to protect her. That's why Angelina doesn't blame him, and her mother probably didn't blame him either. Angelina believed that this was why she gave her the ring, to let her know that she was not alone. After this, the girl thanked him for not giving up and finding her. The Archduke promised to protect her, and this time he would never let her go. The girl told him to call her Angelina. The gentleman said that he did not need to be escorted further because she was not feeling well either. Damon noted that they would see each other again, and Angelina said with a smile that this was true. Edward asked if this was all because he was bothering his fiancée, so he should leave quickly. Finally, he was gone. That was all the Duke had been waiting for. Damon turned to the servant and said that he needed to send a man to the palace. The Emperor has killed Isabel. From now on, we must watch every move of His Majesty the Crown Prince and, of course, the ravens. The Archduke was very angry and decided for himself that he would not lose her a second time, even if he had to start a war with the Emperor. Why did everything turn out this way? Angelina just wanted to ask about what interested her. A little earlier, the Duke noticed that the fever had not yet subsided, so he asked her to take some medicine and get some sleep. Angelina said that she was fine, and besides, she had one more question for him. Angelina wanted to ask something about the memories from the ring. Isabel turns out to be her mother, and she hid the color of her hair and eyes. So she decided to ask Edward if he knew anything about it. The gentleman did not understand at all why so suddenly, and noted that if he answered this question, he would reveal the secrets of their family, so he asked her if she could pay for it. Angelina realized that he was definitely pulling her into a kiss, so she decided to pretend that she didn't understand, which is why he asked how she could pay. Edward asked her to stroke his head. Angelina was surprised that this was all, and it was so simple. So she immediately told him to speak now, because she did. Edward said he would tell as much as he got. When a jewel turns 18, they go on a journey outside of Ambria to celebrate their coming of age. Although they did not leave their possessions, their appearance was striking. Therefore, artifacts began to be used to protect them. Indeed, the agreement was such. They provide them with opals, but in return they supply them with artifacts and military aid. Angelina was just delighted because this was not in the novel, so she decided to ask about the artifacts. She had no idea how they managed to provide them constantly. He couldn't tell her that. Angelina didn't understand why, because he said he would say it, but Edward said as much as he got. So he did. If she wanted to know more, she had to pay. Angelina thought that maybe she didn't even need this information because she didn't really want to kiss him again. Well, she can't, so she needs to think carefully. They're talking about things that aren't in the book. This could prove very important for Edward's fate, and if he lives, so will she. Edward was surprised with you that she won't do it. She won't be able to, and since this is the level of her determination, then he leaves. That can't be right. He won't give in so easily. He's Edward Crawford, the crazy Western dragon who doesn't know how to give up. And then he turned to her and asked if he should give her another chance. And Angelina smiled. There's nothing to worry about, she's done it before. True, the atmosphere is a bit strange, that's why she's worried. So that's it, but still she kissed him and now asks him to speak faster. Edward was shocked by how serious their weak little rabbit was. Well, if that's the case, then he's obliged to tell in the Crawford family, along with the curse comes the blessing of the dragon. Heightened senses, outstanding physical abilities. They have inherited not only this, but also magical abilities, and they are always healthy and immune to poisons. Then it turns out that because of the curse, the use of magic is limited. You can strengthen the sword or create an artifact and so on. Frequency of use is minimal, only to help the jewel. Yes, agreements with the jewel could not be used. That's how it was. No matter how much they talked about Sephiroth's sword, she was curious about why Ed suffered at the hands of the Crown Prince. He had no chance to use his abilities to their full potential. All he could do was endure the madness due to the limitations of magic. There is something else. So the Duke began to ask if she was curious to know about it. Angelina understood that this was the last secret and began to ask what he wanted. Edward asked her to allow him something. Angelina was surprised and asked what it was because she was interested in what he wanted. Edward began to reach closer to her. Angelina asked him to stop. The man realized that he couldn't do it on the lips because she would get angry. He wanted her not to worry because he would kiss her on the cheek. Still, they kissed, but when the Duke opened his eyes, he saw that his wife was crying. Edward didn't understand at all what it was, and the girl began to run away from him. Edward ran up to her and started hugging her and asking her to wait. Angelina asked him to let her go. The man could not believe that it was so disgusting. He likes her very much, that's why he wanted to do it. He asked if she really didn't like it so much that she got so angry. Well, it's not disgust, but he's worried that he might be able to help, which is why she asked. Angelina said that he doesn't understand people. He deceives, mocks, and hates. Edward apologized and said that he was to blame but asked not to hate him. Angelina asked him who said that she felt this way towards him. After all, Edward apologized. Then if he asks properly, she will do it. After that, he picked her up and they both became embarrassed. Angelina noted that it depended on the situation. Edward's thing is that she said that if he asks nicely, she will listen. He saw it, so he understood her, and next time he will touch her heart. Edward needs to tell her his final secret. He said that Crawford, along with the blessing of the dragons, inherits the curse of God. If ordinary people drank their blood, the case would not be able to withstand. Angelina did not understand what this meant because she had already done it. Well, she is an exception because she is a jewel. As long as they are a people under the protection of God, madness cannot affect them. Angelina believed that this was why he gave her his blood to drink to check whether she was a jewel or not. At the same time, he made a blood contract. So in the novel, Edward fed Lillian his blood, and all in order to check her belonging to the race of fairies. Not being in love, he had to do it. Edward asked her not to make that face. Edward said that he couldn't live without her. He tried to puzzle her with me, but she wants to free him from the curse, so she said there was something it didn't tell him. There she saw the introduction of her mother and grandfather talking, and they said that they needed to find the sword of Saphiro. Right now, she doesn't know how to break the curse, but this sword made from dragon scales like their people is connected to Crawford. Angelina can prepare a defense plan. The sword of Saphiro is on the mountain meter. Father asked Evelyn if she was worried, and she said that she was a little worried. She had only heard gossip this would be the first personal meeting, and yet she was curious. Why did she, a person she didn't know personally, receive such a gift? Benjamin or Caleb can't have any personal gain. As for Ms. Angelina, she did it because she really wanted to help. In the end, they will all have to deal with Crawford, whose army is the most powerful in the Empire. The mad western dragon, the killer of the desert. Here someone will cut your throat without hesitation if he gets angry. Therefore, you can never relax. Edward helped Angelina because she got dirty with cream. Evelina was shocked by his behavior because she could not believe that he was that crazy western dragon and killer. She knows the rumors are wrong, but not that wrong. She's not even sure it's the same person she heard from the Isles brothers that the vision situation has improved a little. Evelina was shocked and asked again, and then she confirmed it and said that it was all thanks to the lady. Angelina felt a huge sense of relief and smiled at the lady. Evelina was shocked, but still thanked the lady. If it were her, she would still be wandering in the dark. Angelina was still very glad that she could help. This girl charms Evelina again. It was good that she was friendly to her. It looks like the glasses really helped a lot. Now we just need to find the right moment. Edward told her that when the chance came, she should cure the Duchess completely. Angelina asked him what if she got caught because of this, then she should just cover her hands. He would take care of the rest. She wondered if it would be unpleasant if she suddenly took her hand. Suddenly, Angelina felt a gaze, and she was shocked that she met the gaze of a bird. After that, this bird was Little Window. The knight burst into the room and asked what was going on. Edward wanted to ask about this. The family therefore said that they would come to repay the debt. But something strange is happening. Angelina didn't imagine it, and she doesn't understand at all what's wrong with this bird. The Duke was surprised that the gentleman said that something strange was happening and asked what he was hinting at. The Duke thought Crawford thought they were involved. Crawfords don't do dirty things like that. The guests were shocked that he could use magic, but Edward said that he thought it was clear that it was an unusual bird. This is a familiar that was created with mana, and a flow of magic runs through it. Peyton assumed that meant there was a dark mage in the Empire now. Edward pointed out that they had seen the evidence. It is completely unclear how this could be, and the lady wanted them to wait a little apparently. She heard about the dark magician. Angelina does not understand at all why someone who was not in the novel appears right now. They don't yet have the weapons to confront the Emperor, and then a new villain appears. But Edward is really surprised that Peyton didn't know about it. The man swore on the Peyton's behalf that it had absolutely nothing to do with them. He definitely showed up with him, so Edward asks, who knows they came here? The Duke reported that this was known to his assistant and the children of the Earl of Ailes. Well, they couldn't do that. He was sure of it. Evelina said that these people were definitely not connected to magic, so the Duchess asks them to trust her. Edward points out that they can't know what's on a person's mind, so they'll do it this way. The Peytons will check everything, but Edward has to be careful with his surroundings and himself. Edward said that the bird flew in with them, so in that case the target could be not only them, but all of them together. Edward agreed and noted that they would not stop there for now. After all, this was not the reason they had gathered. Peyton agreed and pointed out that due to unforeseen circumstances, they had not yet expressed their gratitude. The man is very grateful for the glasses given to his daughter, thanks to which Evelina can safely leave the house. Angelina noted that she was glad that they helped at least a little. Evelina said that it was not just help. She is the benefactor who saved her. Therefore, this girl is very grateful to Angelina. Peyton asked if there was anything they could do to help, as their family always repays the kindness they receive. Edward pointed out that there was something he wanted them to give him access to the Meteor Mountain. The Duke asked what the reason was because he needed to know. He didn't seem to know that the Meteor Mountain was not just a mountain for their family. This is a sacred place, and he, as the head of the family, has the responsibility and duty to protect this place. Edward noted that the glasses were not enough. After all, Angelina did not understand why there was such serious protection. Even in the book, it only became known after the Crown Prince asked, but for some reason they guard it so much. The Duke asked how he could possibly heal the Duchess completely with magic. In return, they must listen to one more request. The man was simply unsure of how they dared to be his familiar. Because Crawford's lands are protected by dragons and the guardian tree, he cannot use a familiar to spy on them. So he waited for a moment when the dragon would not protect her and entered inside following the Peyton carriage. But for some reason, he was caught so quickly that the man was simply furious. And this emperor also irritates him to death. He is very disappointed in him after what happened in Khaitan. He must understand why Crawford came to the capital. He was very angry, because if he had not met the gaze of his bride, he would have been able to find out something else. He met her gaze and then realized that ordinary people could not sense familiars. Also, Crawford, who has incomplete magical abilities, should have had difficulty recognizing the familiar. All the more hidden, but if she is a jewel, everything falls into place. No wonder he didn't understand why he suddenly got engaged because of her. The monsters got out of control. Then, he promised Crawford that he would come and did not raise it. How dare he threaten him because he should know his place? If he wants to die so much, then he will kill him just like he did his father, the Duke. And then he will get to his precious jewel. The Duke asked if it was really possible. The Duke asked if he had seen him destroy the familiar. The Duke understood, but it must have hurt. Angelina told him not to worry because everything would be fine if she was so worried. Then Angelina would take her hand. The girl asked the lady to rely on her. Evelina was very grateful for this. Edward remarked that his rabbit was doing well. He would now begin his treatment, so the Duchess should take off her glasses. He will put his hand to her eyes, so she shouldn't be scared. Angelina is already using the power of the stones. It all started when their hands touched, so the healing will end soon. Edward has already guessed, so Evelyn won't need glasses anymore. Everything was ready so the lady could open her eyes, and when she did, she was in complete shock. The father began to ask Evelina if she was okay. The Duchess noted that it was as if nothing had happened. After this, Evelina burst into tears and said that nothing hurt at all, after which her father hugged her and said that she was doing well. Evelina has come a long way and was able to recover, so they are very grateful to him and in return will keep her promise. They signed an agreement, so he trusts that he will follow it. Evelina noted that she would wait for their next meeting with Angelina, so the girl said that she would wait too, and smiled. It was very good that everything was finally resolved, and all thanks to his bride and her cunning method. Angelina knew that he would guess, but where did that needle come from? He carries several with him for self-defense, and when he hugs her, he thinks it's better than a sword. By the way, Angelina wondered what the purpose of the familiar was. She thought it was Duke Peyton, but Edward said they couldn't know for sure. The girl whispered in his ear that this familiar might be looking for jewels. Edward didn't understand at all how she knew he was there. The girl felt an unpleasant looked around, and saw him. Their eyes met. This means that she saw this bird. Angelina did not understand what he was talking about because they all saw it. Edward said that it wasn't true magic was used on her to hide it. Angelina didn't understand how he found out and threw the needle. It was all thanks to his wife. He noticed that she was nervous while looking out the window and decided to act immediately. Angelina was shocked with you that he did this. I don't know what it was. Edward just felt irritated. The girl was shocked that he acted so rashly. She thought she should check everything first. Edward said she didn't have to make that face, because Edward will find that bastard and kill him. If he even found a bride, it would be easy as pie. Angelina was scared his look was too serious. The lady hasn't felt this for a long time, and for some reason it seems to her that she needs to worry about them. Huey came to the gentleman and asked if he had called him, and then he asked about what the matter was and assumed that the gentleman was probably going to leave. The Duke asked him if it looked like he was free enough to leave. Huey said it wasn't, and his master had a lot of work. He simply meant that he would like to do surveillance in the capital as well. Edward said that he had looked around enough. Rack Center in passing. Once went to the fair. Because of the incident arranged by the gentleman, they were not able to walk normally. Huey said that if he was going to lecture him, he should lecture him here, and then they would see how well the sharks would swim without him, but the Duke grabbed him right away. Edward said he was in a bad mood anyway. Huey said he told me that for his own sake, and this was all for the mistress's sake. She is also locked in the castle, so he thinks it will be hard for her. After all, the day of the blood moon is coming soon. The Duke told him to shut up and said that today he had caught the familiar that the dark mage was using to spy on them. Perhaps it was so that Angelina could see him. Angelina did not understand at all why the activation of the opal was constant for me. She, as Isabel's daughter, should have sufficient strength. Maybe the problem is that she's not a full-fledged jewel. Every time the night of the blood moon comes, she is given a pair of new opals. For their price, you can buy a new house, but that's not all she's interested in. What happened to that familiar? Most likely the dark magician will consider her suspicious, since she noticed him. If he decides to pursue her, then everything will be bad. Edward asked Angelina what she was thinking about. The girl was very scared. The lady began to ask him why he was frightening her so much, and why he didn't call out to her at all. Edward said that he called her, which means Angelina didn't hear him. And then he asked her again what she was thinking about. He thought that the reason was in this stone. Opal had nothing to do with it. The problem was in her abilities. Edward noted that it looked as if a lonely and weak rabbit was trying to dig a hole. When he was little and just learning fencing, he performed hundreds, even thousands of basic movements, and it was very boring. Angelina didn't quite understand why all this talk was happening. Edward endured and endured, didn't want to train. He allowed himself to skip classes, and in response he received a reprimand from his father. But at one point it became clear that such ordinary skills eventually improved to the point of excellence. So don't rush, soon Angelina will become just like her mother. Edward is not usually this attentive, but with her, he shows such care and sensitivity. In the fifth, Angelina thanked him again. The blood moon came. There is no point in the night of the blood moon. The stones must be filled with the life energy of the captured victims. Well, now that his sins have been revealed, he doesn't understand at all what to do about it. Using magic to control these creatures took a lot of effort, which is a shame. That's right. He needs to change his target, even though now he doesn't know that the bride and Crawford are jewels, but he's not sure yet if she can get rid of the monsters. Since everything turned out this way, he decided to take advantage of the opportunity to test it. After all, Crawford doesn't know that he is the one who controls the monsters. That's why he asked the demons to go to this Duke. The Duke immediately began to deal with these monsters and kill them. Beryl told the master that something was wrong. There were too many creatures here. It seems as if they have deliberately flocked here in a crowd. They have united. The Duke said that creatures without intelligence are unlikely to be capable of such things themselves, although no, they showed intelligence once. The day Angelina used the jewelry. And then he realized that perhaps their target was Angelina. He was very angry because they dared to encroach on what belonged to him, so he ordered to leave the garden and protect the main building. He didn't understand at all how these creatures knew that Angelina was here. She didn't use force. What's strange is that demons who have no mind act in such an organized manner as if someone is controlling them. The Duke laughed and realized that this was a dark magician, and it was he who brought them all here. Used high-ranking dark magic to summon a familiar controlling demons won't be difficult for him. The Duke thought that demons appeared naturally, but in fact it was all the work of a dark magician. He will definitely find him, and the magician should not even think about begging him for death. This dark mage is not allowed to die in peace. Edward fought the monsters until the morning, and finally they finished. Huey had no idea what it all meant. A crowd of monsters decided to have a picnic here. The Duke asked what was wrong with Angelina. Huey noted that it looked like she had just fallen asleep. She had been worrying about him all the time. After that, a sword flew at him. The man began to say that the gentleman was taking on too much. Edward immediately went inside to meet the lady, but realized that if he went like this, he would dirty her. So he decided to take a bath first. After that, he came to her room. Luckily, she was fast asleep, so he decided to just lie down next to her. After this, Angelina woke up and was surprised when she saw him next to her. Edward hugged her and told her that it was all over now, and he was okay. Angelina was very happy to hear this, and then pressed herself against him and closed her eyes. Edward told her she could sleep peacefully and kissed her on the forehead. There is something that the Lord needs to report to His Highness. Last night, monsters attacked the Duke of Crawford's estate. They don't have enough intelligence to move in an organized manner. Like during Kaitan, it's highly suspicious. Father said that Mythos was able to control monsters, so he made him set up a protective barrier. This barrier prevents monsters from entering the Imperial Palace and other holdings. Only the Crawford Duchy does not have such a barrier. But he wonders what if Mythos just controls the monsters and manages them. Perhaps he has gone too far. Casson has come to the master, but notice him that there is someone here. The man greeted the little son of the Empire, His Highness the Crown Prince. He is Methos. Casson was shocked with you that this man is Methos. Since he saw him for the first time, he counted it over his face and held the sword near him. Methos told His Highness that he really thought he could intimidate him with such people. He did something and Kassan felt pain. Thanks to the use of his drugs, their physical abilities improved. These dogs are raised by him. He deliberately provokes the master by using Kassan. It seems like he wants to observe his reaction, so the master asked him to let his subordinates go, unless of course he came here to quarrel with him. Methos thought he would be like the emperor. She seems to have more determination. So he said that it was true, so the hereditary principal asked why he appeared before him, and also asked if father knew about this. If His Highness the Crown Prince kept silent, then His Highness the Emperor would not know about this. And the reason he came to him was because she had discovered a new weakness in the Duke of Crawford. The prince knows that he said that Crawford would soon die. This is true, but as he has already said, he cannot yet say the exact time. Crawford may remain alive even after His Highness ascends the throne. Jernoa thought about it because his father hadn't said anything, so he asked why he was telling him about it. Methos said that they should prepare for the future. They would soon see a new rising sun. The prince did not understand at all how he dared to despise His Majesty in front of him, or he is plotting treason. Methos still respects His Majesty and only wishes that Crawford's decline be attributed to his merits. And then she asked the gentleman what he would say and whether he would like to personally overthrow the Duke of Crawford. On the day Jernoa was crowned Crown Prince, his father told him several secrets. Jernoa, by the way, I didn't understand what all this meant. The monsters appeared because his father exterminated the jewels. The principal asked what was wrong with the subjects. If they revolted, it would be the end for them. The emperor did not understand what such pathetic creatures could understand. His son, I must pay attention even to the aristocrats. As long as there is a barrier of mythos, they will not be able to act recklessly. Jernoa just has to do what Max said, that is, find the heart of the tree of the guardian. That's all they need. And then all the creatures will disappear. The emperor will provide him with a raven, so he must find it. Damn Methos. He only takes all the credit for himself, so why does he trust me more? Methos said he would help the prince. Crawford's fall will be made by the hands of the crown prince, because it is unclear how long he will remain in the shadow of His Majesty. Or else the master will allow all his achievements to be attributed to the emperor. Jernoa noted that he was very cunning. Despite his unclear origins, he seemed to understand how he managed to lure his father. Methos is skilled at finding hidden desires and provoking his interlocutor, and also chats incessantly. He could not guess His Highness's feelings. It was a rather sweet temptation. So the gentleman asked how he planned to deal with Crawford. Judging by the past results, things were not going so smoothly. This time, he wanted to use a foolproof method. All the prince has to do is lure the dukes to the place he specifies, and he will take care of the rest. They will communicate with each other using an amulet. Genoa agreed and asked him to let him know when he was ready. Methos was grateful that he listened to his request. At this point, he digresses. Casson asked the gentleman if he really believed this guy. The man said of course not, and he was just using him to get what they both wanted. Perhaps for him, he and his father are nothing more than a piece on a chessboard. He remembered the emperor saying that he should just follow his master's orders. So he told Casson that once he found the heart, he should not tell anyone because no one should know about it. Methos shouldn't think he has an advantage because he's like a father to me. By the way, the man Crawford was looking for recently. He's wondering what's wrong with him. Casson believed that his master was talking about the unknown person. They tried to track him down, but without success. The gentleman understood him, so he said he could leave now. First Peyton. Now the strange man Crawford hasn't been acting like he usually does lately. So Genoa thinks about what he has in mind. Very fortunate, because he was just thinking about how to lure Crawford. This will even help to calm down the Duke of Chavigny. Therefore, it is very useful for the master. When Edward received the invitation, he was curious about what it was. This time, he was very surprised when he read it. Angelina was happy because everything was back to normal. Only 4 days had passed since the night of the blood moon. Edward saved Angelina's favorite peonies. That's what he told her when they went for a walk together after the blood moon. Suddenly he walked into her room and asked what it was doing. Angelina turned to him and smiled. The guy was glad because she was no longer afraid. It's all from this that she knows that it's him, only he appears in this house like this. Edward wanted her to look at this invitation and ask her if she knew what he liked. It says here that it is a wristwatch, which is amazing. Perhaps in the original, the Crown Prince and Aliana wore it to the engagement ceremony. Then came the peak of popularity of these watches, although it was still early for this fashion. Angelina noted that this was Charlotte's catalog. It was brought to a VIP client because he bought a couple of things and they already call him VIP, and it's so funny. They spent the equivalent of several mansions that day, so it's weird to call it a pair of things. Edward said the watch was issued as a pair. The lady was surprised by this, and he remarked that it would be great if they put them on. She loves it when it's time to do something together, and anyway, that's what he likes. The Duke said that you can't understand from one picture, so you have to see it in person and decide. Angelina was shocked with you that he was going to go right now. It's a limited edition and there are only a few left. He told her that he had things to do, but he doesn't care anymore. Hughie was simply delighted when he saw the gentleman and learned that he had listened to his sincere request. He asked how the lady had been chewing all this time they had seen each other a couple of days ago. The Duke ordered him to stand still. Angelina had thought about this before, but the Shark Chief was very different from his original image. His emotionless face frightened people, so they called him Death. Hughie asked the lady if the Duke had told her about the excursion on the ship because he had found out everything, especially for her. It turns out he's like that by nature. Edward asked him if he'd forgotten the order to keep his distance. Hughie doesn't understand at all why the master only despises him. If he knew how hard he prepared for today, he wouldn't do it. He also wants to talk to the lady, but the gentleman said that if he continues to make such noise, he will stay here. It seems that Angelina upset the head. It is not his fault that she was scared. Edward said that since she was scared, it was Hughie's fault. The leader was talking about a boat excursion, so the lady asked if today's trip had been planned in advance. The Duke thought about getting out once before leaving the capital. It would be a shame to leave without seeing it. Therefore, Angelina should not worry, because as long as he is around, nothing will happen. The girl was shocked because he took care of this too. If Edward says so, she's looking forward to the boat ride. Edward asked if she was being honest about it, because it would be fun if he went for a ride with her. Since they are going, the Crown Prince wants to have fun while they are there. Just not this time. The gentleman had no idea when they would arrive. Apparently the catalog wasn't enough to impress. Well, suddenly he saw a carriage from which a lady was getting out with a gentleman. He was in complete shock because such a high-ranking person had come to see him. so he immediately welcomed them and was very grateful that they visited Charlotte. Edward asked if he was the manager, and he confirmed that he was. The gentleman said that he had come to look at the wristwatch. Those because of the limited edition, he must bring each model. Edward told Angelina to look at that watch and believed that it was different from the one in the catalog. Angelina agreed with him. They turned out to be much more beautiful than in the pictures. The seller provided them with a limited edition. It is available in 4 designs, and the gemstones used in them are also different. Just look at them to understand how expensive they are. They don't need to be worn, but rather cared for. Angelina said that they are all beautiful, and she doesn't even know which ones to choose. So she wanted to offer to come next time, but the gentleman said that they didn't need this suffering, so they would just buy everything and ask to pack it. Angelina knew she had to stop him, so she started saying that it was too much, and if she was going to buy it, it would be better to buy 1 pair instead of several, as they would be much more valuable. Perhaps she could call them the first broken watch Edward ever gave her. The gentleman provided a design that is only being presented today. If they acquire them, they will become the sole owners on the entire continent. Edward noticed that in such a case, it was necessary to brag, so he put the watch on the bride's hand and then kissed her. And they also need to be told that the main character is Angelina. That's why they take them. The gentleman was very pleased. Angelina was worried because it turned out to be too expensive. He was supposed to sell them the watch he was talking about, and if everything went smoothly, he would reward him generously. The seller did as the Duke said and sold them, but that ring was made specially in their branch. He remembers that this was the first order for a men's ring. The delivery location was apparently the Crawford estate. And it turns out that those two are the Duke of Crawford and his fiancée, so he's not sure that everything is okay. The seller was already starting to think that he was putting himself in danger, and it seemed like he was in deep trouble. They say Mr. Crawford dedicated Charlotte and bought a watch. The Duke was surprised. A few days ago, the Crown Prince's palace. That day he was disappointed that the Duke of Crawford had not received his punishment. Shavini said that this was not the case at all, and he was pleased that he had taken care of his daughter Lillian. He was very grateful to him for that. Crawford is truly a nuisance, but it would be a shame to lose him because of his abilities. However, at the same time, he cannot close his eyes to the fact that he is threatening his family. This meant that he had chosen Lillian as the princess's screen, so the Duke began to say that he was definitely and absolutely right, because there is nothing more important than the well-being of the family. Before the wedding, it seems he should take Crawford by the ribs, so he asks the Duke for help. He did everything His Highness ordered. Now all they can do is watch his collapse. Shavini was curious to see how this would be used. The servant suggested that he introduce the man. Well, the gentleman thought that this was not necessary, because it was not worth arousing unnecessary suspicions. They would pretend that they did not know anything. Lillian didn't understand at all what all this meant, and why her father was interested in Duke Crawford's affairs. She wanted to think that all this was for her sake. In fact, it was not like that at all, but she was very happy. Just recently, her father told her that this man was a crazy bastard, and it was better not to mess with him. He told her about it, but he still plans to deal with him somehow. Just buying a watch for punishment is not enough. Lillian was very curious, so she decided she needed to go and find out for herself. This is what he really wanted to buy. A pocket watch inconvenient for women to wear. Plus, it's a pair of watches, so of course he wanted it. He and Angelina now have a pair of watches, so he's very happy. He continued to expand her collection and asked what she wanted to buy next time. It's so great. It's not that Angelina doesn't like it, but she really enjoys it. Suddenly, a girl turned to Angelina and said that this flower suited her very well. Angelina believed that this girl was selling flowers to support herself. Angelina told Edward that she wanted this rose, so she asked him to buy it for her. Edward said he couldn't pass by the flowers, so he turned to the girl and asked her to give him everything she had and not to give him change. The girl said that it was too much, and with shaking hands, she handed the bouquet to the lady. Angelina noticed that they were very beautiful and was very grateful, but suddenly she accidentally pricked her finger on the roses. Edward asked what happened, and if she had pricked her finger, Angelina said it looked like she had picked up some thorns. The girl understood that Edward would be angry, so she told the girl that it was just a small injection. It would come soon, so it was okay. Edward licked her finger and said that the bleeding had stopped. Then he bandaged her finger and asked if it still hurt. Irina said that it didn't hurt, and then the master ordered his knight to take the child away. Angelina thought her husband was offended by her. She said that they wanted to have a good time. So she doesn't understand at all how she can enjoy the day after that. Later, when she remembers this day, the first thing that comes to her mind will be the child. She wants that when she remembers this day she thinks only of him, of the happy time spent with him. He didn't understand at all why she needed these flowers, but he still agreed with her. Angelina said that she liked them very much and took them again. Edward never gets mad at her. He's just upset because she got hurt. Well, he healed her, and now Angelina is not in pain at all, so she asks him not to be angry with this child. Edward promised to think about it and smiled at her, and then she asked how she felt. Angelina didn't quite understand what he was talking about, and where did her husband want to know if she was happy now? If you think about it, she doesn't even remember the last time they spent time so calmly.